The sky was gloomy gray, the earth a deep black, the rolling waves of the yellow spring river, the no-return path paved with white bones, the endless line of the dead, and the red-eyed crows circling above them. Is this what the afterlife looks like? Staring through the wide-open gate of the deceased, after glimpsing the scenery of the realm of the dead, the souls of 3 cleaners, 2 men and 1 woman, fell into silence simultaneously. Although they had long known that as cleaners, it was unlikely they would live to die naturally and would most probably report here after some highly dangerous task, they were mentally prepared for it. But when it all truly happened, the 3 were still somewhat unable to accept it, unable to believe their lives had so abruptly come to an end. I am so unwilling. Breaking free from the flower fairy state and returning to his normal human size, Reuben couldn't help but sob quietly, 2 lines of hot tears suddenly streaming down the face of the middle-aged man in his 40s, full of regret as he said, "Everything was going so smoothly. Why did we suddenly die? We were all beside the director, so why were we killed by that kind of cannon? Forget it. It's all over now." Feeling the increasingly powerful force pulling him into the realm of the dead, standing, floating by Reuben's side, Frankie couldn't help but sigh bitterly. "Though I don't know what happened, we should have fallen into some trap. Even the director couldn't escape. Half his body blasted apart. Perhaps he'll be here in a while as well. Alas, the 3 of us should go first. Don't think about it any further. That's the business of the living. We're dead now, no matter how much we think. We can't go back. It's time for us to go. I still want to try." Just as Reuben and Frankie moved towards the gate of the deceased, prepared to accept their fate, the only female cleaner amongst them suddenly lifted her head, pulling at the corners of the other's clothes, her face stubborn as she said, "My forward path is an abnormal object at the soul level and is still within my soul. I can still use it. Reuben, Frankie, help me. If the 3 of us can use the effect of forward path to carve out a way back here, there might still be a chance." After hearing the female cleaner Mona's request, Reuben and Frankie exchanged a look, hesitating before saying, "But this is the realm of the dead. Even if the director has died, he can only temporarily resist the rules here. Ultimately, he still has to walk the no-return path and we're just second-level cleaners." "Help me." Interrupting Reuben, the female cleaner Mona took a deep breath and then firmly said, "The director hasn't come to the realm of the dead yet, which means he's still alive. Even if we can't go back ourselves, if we can just create a small breach to send my forward path back, it might help the director escape. Please, help me. No matter what the result, I still want to try. If it wasn't for the director, I would have been here 20 years ago. I can't not try." "All right then." After exchanging glances, Reuben and Frankie nodded, relying on the sole strength of second-level cleaners to resist the call from deep within the realm of the dead while standing behind Mona. "Thank you." Gratefully looking at the 2, the whole soul of the female cleaner Mona suddenly lit up, bursting into intense white flame. Then turning around, she took a step towards the endless gray fog behind her. Tap! The sound of shoe soles striking the bony ground came, and at the moment Mona successfully took a step, a path appeared in the endless gray fog outside the gate of the deceased. Although it seemed insignificant compared to the endless gray world, the gray fog representing irreversible death indeed made a very small concession. Could it be there's really a chance? Noticing this, the originally hesitant other 2 cleaners immediately felt a rush of spirit, gritting their teeth, their dim souls lighting up as well, undulating like white flames under the impetus of determination. Compared to the boundless gray fog, the 3 souls burning at full strength looked as feeble as fireflies lost at sea, but were nonetheless carving out a narrow winding path back with each firm step. Could work. It might really work. Feeling the faint breeze carrying the breath of the living world through the narrow path, the 3 cleaners couldn't help a surge in spirits. Leon value is the threshold between gods and men, the dividing line deciding whether one can break free from the rules of the realm of the dead. And the 3 of them, as senior second-level cleaners, had an average Leon value nearing 30, already strong enough in terms of raw power. Though ultimately lacking that pivotal transformation to cross the threshold of a true god, unable to truly transcend death, with Mona's forward path. It might still be possible to carve a small path towards life from death. And just like Mona said, even if they eventually must return, even if they only send forward path back to save the director's life, or merely catch one last glimpse of that world, putting everything on the line is worthwhile. Quick! Put in more effort. Feeling the gust coming from the direction of the living world, Mona gritted her teeth, struggling forward with all her might while shouting desperately. Just one more step. Just one more step. Ah! I really can't ignore this. Amidst the astonished expressions of the three cleaners, dozens of octopus tentacles suddenly emerged from behind, akin to coiled snakes, firmly wrapping around the three's limbs and waists. And the numerous fleshly suckers the size of infant mouths on the tentacles started frantically sucking their strength through soul contact. In just a few breaths, the energy burst from their burning souls was drained completely, as the three of them, having lost their strength, were pulled backward by the octopus tentacles. Their feet leaving the ground, the hard-fought path was swiftly closed by the encroaching gray fog, disappearing entirely. One step. Just one step was all it took. Don't blame me. It's just my duty. Facing the spiteful gazes of the three cleaners, a long-tailed giant horse with octopus tentacles growing where its mane should have blinked and rambled on, revealing its teeth, saying, I usually don't meddle in these things, but the issue is your cleanup bureau produced a ruthless one who, for some unfathomable reason, stubbornly devoured the canine deity who used to guard this place alive. And to maintain the order of the realm of the dead, to prevent random entries and exits, we death envoys must take turns watching the gate of the deceased, and today just happens to be my shift. Oh, by the way, I must ask one more thing. None of you three are from the Virgin Branch, are you? Although the verbose long-tailed beast seemed eager to chat, as if it desperately wanted someone to talk to. But the three cleaners were just one step away from returning to the living world, only to be forcibly pulled back at the most critical moment. Their anger was on the brink of bursting out, and rather than chatting, they preferred to strangle it to death right on the spot. Just a little bit more. Breaking free from massive disappointment, Mona, the most hot-tempered female cleaner, shouted in anger. Ignoring the suckers still embedded in her flesh, she forcibly jerked her arm free, waving her blood-soaked limb frantically as she began tearing at the tentacles binding her. The other two were not much better off. Even though their bodies were almost transparent due to soul burning followed by an ambush, they still cried out and struggled, attempting to resist the so-called death envoy's constraints. Sigh. Forget it if you don't want to talk. Seeing how uncooperative these cleaners were, the long-tailed beast smacked its lips in disappointment. Then it rolled up the three cleaners in its tentacles and started moving towards the gate of the deceased, babbling incessantly as it went. Let me tell you, when your cleanup bureau's lunatic devoured the canine deity, I was actually there. Oh man, that scene was not your average bloodbath. Those of you who haven't witnessed it could never imagine how insane he was. Though the guard dog of death was the weakest true god in the realm of the dead, even the weakest was still a true god, and he was slaughtered and devoured, gnawed from the inside out. Such ferocity. When us death envoys arrived, that lunatic was holding the canine deity's heart, gnawing away while crawling out from its stomach, covered in blood like a blood-dyed man, with clothes soaked in divine blood, not a hint of other colors in sight. After chattering on and on, the long-tailed beast lay down outside the gate of the deceased, in the spot originally belonging to the three-headed canine deity. It then began to roll up the spirits of two deceased and stuff them into its mouth, enthusiastically continuing. TSK, in short, none of us death envoys expected to encounter such a thing, and each of us was scared stiff. The eyeless fish of the Yellow Springs River leapt back into the river in terror, and the bloodhead crow flew straight away without turning back, while the bone reindeer blew itself up on the spot. Still hasn't recovered. Luckily, I was more cowardly than them. I didn't dare get too close from the start. After peeping from afar, I ran away, though I got reprimanded by the Overlord and was sent as the first to guard the gate. I must say, guarding here is really boring. With weak souls, those deceased can't help but keep walking on the no-return path and leave after a few words, but your souls are rather strong. Might hold on for 3 to 5 days? How about this, you three stay here and chat with me. I'll wait to eat you 4 days later when the Bloodhead Crow comes to change shifts. How does that sound? Are you interested? Scram. Get lost. Oh well, I thought you might entertain me. Seeing Mona, the female cleaner, glaring at him with anger and clearly unwilling to cooperate, the long-tailed beast sighed helplessly, then opened its mouth full of maw-like molars and prepared to stuff Mona in with its tentacles. Hey horse, wait up. Just then, a somewhat anxious voice came from afar. The long-tailed beast squinted and spotted a little figure all red, hurrying towards them. Who are you to make me wait? You think you're big enough? Seeing the approaching figure had only slightly stronger soul strength than ordinary cleaners, while far weaker than the one in its mouth, the long-tailed beast disdainfully curled its lips, intending to proceed with its bite. However, at that moment, when the other two cleaners bound by the tentacles recognized the newcomer, they shouted in despair. Leon? How come you? Were you also killed? Oh, so this guy's called Lu. Ah? Leon? Leon the Devourer? Upon hearing this terrifying name, the long-tailed beast shivered violently, realizing in horror that the red, glowing figure was indeed the same devourer it had seen from afar before. As for why he was glowing red, that's divine blood that won't wash off. Help! Help, master! Realizing its situation, the long-tailed beast screamed in terror and sprang up, shouting for help as it stumbled towards the gate of the deceased, its legs nearly tripping over each other if you looked closely. And seeing it nearing the gates, Leon, rushing over, grew anxious. There was no other way, for the power of the guard dog of death required the gate of the deceased to activate. Like the three-headed canine deity, it only had the authority to block passage, but not to allow entry of its own accord. Put simply, if the souls of the three cleaners had not yet entered the gate, Leon, who replaced the guard dog of death, would have the authority to stop them from entering, but if they had already entered, whether they could come out depended on their own doing. Stop! Don't run! Upon hearing Leon's angry shout, the long-tailed beast shivered, stumbled a couple of steps, nearly tripping, but ultimately didn't heed the call to stop and instead ran even faster. Only a fool would stop. Leon the Devourer, after being missing for days, reappears outside the gates of the dead, probably digesting the canine deity, feeling hungry, and here to find more food. Would you not run and wait to be eaten? There's no other way. Seeing its forelegs already stepping into the gate of the deceased, with the tentacles on its neck holding the three cleaners about to pass through, Leon sighed. He then stopped, raised his hands toward the distant giant gates, and clapped hard. Close for me! With Leon's roar, two heavy doors emerged from the void, and the gate of the deceased, which separated life and death, shut with a thunderous boom, unleashing a dense death aura that scattered the deceased around the gate. Seeing Leon forcibly closing the gate, seemingly determined to taste him, the fleeing long-tailed beast was already scared out of its wits. Ignoring potential injury, it thrust its head past just in time before the gate of the deceased shut completely. Boom! The massive gates closed completely, leaving the long-tailed beast's body outside, while its head rolled off and, propelled by two remaining tentacles on its neck, ran away like a person, screaming all the while. Oh no! Run for it! Leon the Devourer is hungry again. What on earth is that? Through the closed gates, watching the head flailing two octopus tentacles rapidly fleeing down the no-return path, Leon, whose sanity was rupturing, grimaced, then hastily retrieved the silver dagger of cutting to rescue the three cleaners bound by the tentacles. Leon? You! No time to explain. Feeling the realm of the dead boiling again after forcibly closing the gate of the deceased, and worried about being caught by the realm's masters, Leon hurriedly grabbed the three bewildered seniors, turned, and fled towards where he came from. Hurry, run! It's almost too late. Can't believe it. We actually made it back. Following Leon, who was covered in blood through the mist and returning to the living world, the three cleaners looked at the familiar sights of the world of the living, and couldn't help but tear up, overcome with emotion. But before they could thank Leon, The blazing sunlight of the living world shone on their souls, suddenly igniting large patches of invisible white smoke, and they screamed in agony. "Open your mouth!" Prepared for this scenario, Leon grabbed the souls of the three cleaners and pried open the mouth of the black goat, stuffing them inside in one go. Hold it, but absolutely do not eat." After admonishing the black goat, Leon was still uneasy, worried that the black goat couldn't resist the temptation of the high-quality souls and secretly taste them, so he straightforwardly threatened, "Remember this, for every little bit missing from their souls, I'll send you to the kingdom of Orlison to be purified along with your whip." "Humph, won't eat then, as if I care." Facing the threat of purification, the black goat, which was just a bit tempted, immediately quieted down, flipped a white eye at Leon, and held the souls of the three cleaners without moving. As for the three souls inside the goat's mouth, they relied on the soul protection provided by the great demon to successfully avoid the harm from the sun and temporarily remain safely in the living world. After Leon's maneuver ended, Alger, who vaguely understood, couldn't help but ask excitedly, What about them? It's a bit complicated to explain." After peeking at the movement of the gate of the deceased and noticing no one was following, Leon breathed a sigh of relief and concisely explained, "After I ate the death watchdog, I inherited part of its powers which allow me to prevent souls from entering the realm of the dead. However, this power has limitations. It must be near the gate of the deceased to be effective. So, I just went to the realm of the dead to stop the seniors from entering the gate before they did, effectively dragging them back temporarily." "Temporary meaning what?" "Meaning they can't stay here forever," Leon said with some helplessness. "According to the rules of the living world, the body and soul must coexist to exist. Even descending holy spirits and true gods need to create bodies for themselves first. But the seniors' bodies are already destroyed. Although I can prevent them from going to the realm of the dead, I can't keep their souls forever. Issues will arise over time. So we must find a way to leave the Kralik kingdom or use something to contact the headquarters. Otherwise, the seniors' souls will ultimately be expelled from this world. The problem is, we can't get out now." After listening to Leon's explanation, the excited expression on Alger's face slightly faded, and he gritted his teeth. "How about this? You stay in the Kralik kingdom, hide with their souls and Princess Phylea, and I'll try to see if I can break through and get out." "Senior Alger, you'd better not entertain this notion." Upon hearing this, Leon shook his head. "I don't know if your presence has been exposed, but since I led the kidnapping of Princess Phylea, they surely know of my presence. Since I haven't appeared at the Gemini branch, I'm certainly still in the Kralik kingdom. And normally we should be trying to escape, so their defenses will certainly be extremely tight. The probability of you safely breaking through is almost zero." "Then what?" "Not exactly wait around. We can still do something." After considering the current situation, Leon contemplated and said, "Speaking purely about hard strength, Director Edward over there with a yellow road, an elite level 1, and 3 senior level 2, can't be said to be weak. According to Nicole's description, they fell into an ambush, losing due to enemy stealth and lack of information, not overwhelming enemy strength. And now, as long as we hide well, the tables are turned. The enemy is in the open and we're in the dark. We can use this opportunity to gather information on the enemy. If their strength isn't that strong, we might just be able to confront them. Seniors." Here, Leon turned his head towards the black goat, asking the 3 cleaners inside its mouth, "What exactly happened at the Gemini branch? Can you explain it in detail?" "To be honest, we're not very sure." Upon hearing Leon's words, Reuben, who had shrunk to doll size, hesitantly replied, "Actually, there's not much to explain, just a round of powerful artillery fire. Although under ambush it was a bit sudden, it was mostly just making us scramble for a while. We could still handle it. But for some reason, the opponent's artillery seemed particularly fast. We couldn't react at all, couldn't even activate the abnormal object, only had time to see the walls explode, and were directly blown to pieces. Especially fast?" Upon hearing this, Leon raised his brow, recalling the words of the female reporter conveyed by the secret tale. The female reporter didn't seem to mention that the artillery was unusually fast. In her account, it was just that, somehow, aside from her, no one reacted and was directly hit by heavy fire. So, was it the artillery being fast, or people slowing down? Which was it? After pondering slightly, Leon turned his head to Alger beside him, implicitly asking, "Senior Alger, if prompted by close-range thermal weapons, can you react in time?" "That's no problem." Alger thought for a moment and replied, "With my reaction speed, if the trigger is pulled right in front of me, I just need to dodge the muzzle's direction. As long as I can see it, I can evade it, even if it's close to the face. If it's a surprise attack, it might be difficult within 2 or 3 meters, but further away I'd certainly dodge it, even though artillery and ammunition are much faster than small-caliber firearms. Just a thought away, activating abnormal objects for survival is still feasible." "Mind if I test it?" As Leon spoke, he took out a small-caliber nail gun, flipped the safety with his thumb, aimed at the ground in front of Alger's feet. "I might suddenly fire at the ground at any time, and then you activate the abnormal object to block the nail." Before finishing the sentence, Leon abruptly pulled the trigger, quickly firing the nail, while Alger's eyes sharpened. The right foot wearing black leather shoes suddenly dispersed into a bunch of pitch-black threads, then perfectly let the nail pass. Seeing the skin thread merely pounced after the nail embedded into the ground, Alger couldn't help but stare blankly, while Leon sighed and gave his judgment. "Seniors, it seems it's not the Kralik Kingdom's artillery being too fast, but your reaction has slowed." "Has our reaction slowed down?" Upon hearing Leon's words, the 3 cleaners, now mere souls, showed expressions of astonishment. Alger snatched the nail gun and fired another shot towards his foot, refusing to believe it. Poof! This time, thanks to some psychological preparation, the response was much better than before. Before the nail hit the ground, Alger's right foot scattered into countless threads again, firmly wrapping the nail. However, even though the experiment was successful, Alger's face showed no joy of success. Instead, it turned quite ugly. It really did slow down a lot. Bang, bang, bang. After continuously firing and emptying the remaining nails in the nail gun, seeing 2 nails caught by the skin thread and 4 nails that passed through and hit the ground, Alger couldn't help but look grim. "It feels like less than an eighth of normal, perhaps even less. My reaction speed is now almost like a regular person's. Damn it! Why didn't I notice this earlier?" "I'm not too sure either, but I guess you've been subjected to some method that reduced the upper limit of your reaction speed." Looking at the 4 nails embedded in the ground, Leon also frowned and said, "The more often cleaners carry and use high-grade abnormal objects, the more likely they are to be contaminated by these objects, with their bodies transforming towards non-human strength. But no matter how intense this transformation is, it's ultimately based on human flesh. Simply put, regardless of contamination value, we can still feel hot and cold, thirst, hunger, and injury, but our vitality is much stronger than ordinary people, our reaction speed faster, our bodies tougher, souls more vibrant, and we can use abnormal objects longer and more often. But these changes don't usually manifest so clearly. Having a much faster reaction speed than average doesn't mean we see others moving in slow motion. It's just that the higher upper limit can be realized when a quick reaction is needed." Leon paused briefly and then pointed at pedestrians on the street. "It's like the difference between running and walking. An ordinary person, when chased by a beast, can run 100 meters in just a dozen seconds, but while strolling, it might take more than a minute to walk that distance because that speed is entirely sufficient for a stroll. But the opponent seems to have done something, locking your running ability. During normal walking and strolling, you don't need to be fast, so it's barely noticeable. But when a beast truly pounces, requiring full-speed running, you'd realize that you've lost the ability to run. So that's how we got caught. Through Leon's tests and explanations, understanding the origins of the quick cannons. The 3 cleaners suddenly realized, and the female cleaner Mona urgently said, "If it's just like that, then let's quickly find the director. Just tell him the secret. Maybe there's still a chance for him." "Sorry, I don't think that's a good idea. Before the female cleaner finished speaking, Leon immediately interrupted. You possibly died too early, not witnessing what happened afterward. Nicole told me that Edward's body was blown apart half-wise, and his soul was forcibly sealed inside his shattered flesh. There's no longer any chance of a comeback for them. But surely we can't just. It's not that I'm leaving them to die. I simply have no ability to save them. Shaking his head decisively, Leon said, especially at such times, one has to make decisions with caution. Our information is inadequate, and acting recklessly won't save anyone but rather destroy any last hopes and mess up everything completely. Mona Sr., although this sounds unpleasant, I must say, if your suggestion comes from rational judgment, I'll certainly consider it seriously. But if it's merely an emotional impulse, then I must ask you to calm down first. I'm sorry. I got too anxious. Biting her lip hard, the female cleaner calmed herself a bit, bowed her head, and apologized voluntarily, then asked, So what do we do now? Find a way to investigate that thing that suppressed our reaction speed and help you and Alger free from it. That can be investigated, but the priority needs to be lower. Leon shook his head upon hearing this. Even if we find out how the opponent manipulated, we might not have the means to remove it. So, let's focus on more important issues, like the location of the palace and Adify 01 itself, and the current situation of the royal family. But how do we check that? The female cleaner couldn't help but ask. The Kralik Kingdom's blocks change too frequently. The director and us have been investigating for almost 2 weeks, finding only some irrelevant stuff. These 2 places are still without any leads, and the royal family has been staying secluded for years. There's really no way to start checking. Don't worry, I've got leads now. Leon pulled out his identification card, casually twisted and discarded it, while reaching out to Alger, signaling him to destroy his identification card, and answered, Once we reach the embassy district, we'll have a chance to get close to these 2 places. As for the royal family's situation, Lady Philea, do you have anything to say? With a sideways glance at the emerald-eyed girl who was still unconscious, Leon squinted slightly and said, Lady Philea, could you please tell me why upon hearing that something's happened to us, the emotion flooding your heart was not panic but rather a hint of glee? Oh no. After Leon exposed her heart's thoughts, the Princess Philea trembled all over, then had to open her eyes and said fearfully, Because you guys are kidnappers. I've been kidnapped by you, so hearing you're having trouble naturally, I couldn't help but feel a little happy. All right, you passed. Leon heard this, nodded indifferently, and while crushing the identification card Alger handed over, asked with a calm expression. Now for the second question. When we were discussing the method that locked our reaction speed, I sensed a distinct pride in your soul. How do you intend to explain this? Well, if you can't explain it, I'll have to guess myself. Seeing the Princess Philea sweating at her temples, her large eyes darting around and not daring to meet his gaze, Leon said expressionlessly, Given that pride in your heart, it proves that this method is related to you, maybe even a tactic you suggested. Lady Philea, am I guessing correctly? If you don't speak, I'll assume silence means consent. Looking at the flustered soul of the emerald-eyed girl, Leon sighed lightly and then asked with tightly knit brows. Next is the third question. Besides you and Prince Andrei, are there any other living members of the Kralik royal family now? What? Upon hearing Leon's third question, not only did the girl with emerald eyes gasp in shock, but even the 4 cleaners from the Scorpio branch shivered unconsciously, looking at Leon in complete astonishment. No way, the female cleaner said incredulously. I've already investigated with the director. Although the Kralik royal family has been reclusive, they've shown quite a bit of activity in recent years. In fact, at the year-end celebration last year, the king of the Kralik kingdom even made a public speech. It shouldn't be that they've almost been wiped out, right? Senior Mona, I will explain why I have such suspicions later. For now, please do not interrupt me. After giving the female cleaner a not-too-hard glare, Leon turned his gaze to the somewhat flustered emerald-eyed girl and said without allowing her to refuse, "Princess Phylea, although I'm not quite sure what's going on with you, I'll call you that for now. I want to hear your straightforward answer. Is there a third living person in the royal family? Yes or no?" "Of course, there are others." Interrupted by the female cleaner, Phylea calmed down a bit and said, blinking her large eyes, "I'm not sure about others, but both my father and mother are still here, and other familiar people are also fine. Just the day before I was kidnapped by you, I greeted my mother. Could I possibly have guessed wrong?" Upon receiving this answer, Leon furrowed his brow in doubt, while Frankie, upon examining Phylea's soul state, cautiously said, "Though I'm not very sensitive to these things, I understand a bit about souls, and what she says seems to be true. Phew, at least I've managed to get past this." Seeing that Leon didn't oppose Frankie's judgment but instead stood there silently with a frown, Phylea secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Who would have thought that just by playing dead and eavesdropping, I could be found out, almost getting exposed, and they even guessed part of the royal family's situation. With a slightly fearful glance at Leon, although lacking the computational support of her original body and finding it hard to be entirely genuine, Phylea still adhered to her usual behavior model and said pitifully while blinking, "You can ask whatever you want. I can answer everything. Just please don't hurt me. I'm truly telling the truth. It's all true." Glancing at the cute, demure emerald eyes, Leon's frown slightly lifted as if receiving a crucial reminder, and he set his gaze on Princess Phylea again. Truth proves nothing. When dealing with internal investigations by the Cleanup Bureau, everything I said was also true. But did that delay me from attacking the palace? All right, let me change my approach and ask again. Having figured it out, Leon's brow relaxed, and he asked again amid the emerald-eyed girl's petrified glance. "Within the Kralik royal family, other than you and Prince Andrei, are the members' bodies their original bodies? Are their souls their original souls? Or to delve deeper, their so-called living state, is it like normal people, capable of running, jumping, eating, and chatting? Or do they merely exist?" As Princess Phylea struggled to respond, unsure of what to say, the lazy Prince Andrei, for once not basking on the balcony of his bedroom, instead took the royal family's special levitating car to arrive at the Kralik Kingdom's royal palace. Dong! With the melodic chime of the gigantic pendulum strike, the steam clock towers standing by the palace gates gently twisted, the massive, somewhat weathered bronze wheel on the doors shifted aside, and the doors swung open, revealing a brightly lit glass corridor. The corridor, hanging with numerous lamps, was wide and magnificent. Behind the spotless glass walls on either side, the grand hall was evenly divided, with hundreds of small display platforms scattered throughout. Compared with the palace housing the royal family, this building resembled more of an expansive museum. Each small platform beneath the clock face displayed intricate and precise mechanical creations. Sky Clipper, levitating cars, mechanical hearts, massive differential engines, nearly 5-meter-tall mechanical giants. Even the largest platform on the left holds a complete miniaturized model, seemingly representing the entire Kralik Kingdom, twisting and rotating like a Rubik's Cube. Below these exquisite platforms, on the purposely left slanted plates, records describe the inventors and functions of the mechanical creations, their iterative design processes, and even more of the core design philosophies and reasons, making each a rare treasure. Ignoring these treasures capable of driving the whole kingdom mad, the slightly fatigued Prince Andrei walked through the glass corridor with a face of indifference, past a clock-like disc, and opened the door to the main hall at the back of the grand hall. "Who?" As Prince Andrei stepped into the main hall, a somewhat puzzled voice called out from deeper within. Following the voice, Prince Andrei saw on the high throne facing the door a gallant middle-aged man in a royal robe holding a jewel-encrusted scepter of time, looking at him with astonishment. "You are..." With green eyes fixed on Prince Andrei, the middle-aged man on the throne couldn't help but widen his eyes. He first looked at the 12 or 13-year-old boy beside him, then at the young man around 27 or 28 standing before him, and, puzzled, asked, Who are you? Why do you look so much like my Andre? Compared to the hall filled with countless display platforms but void of people, the main hall of the Kralik Palace was several times smaller but much livelier. In this hall, with tightly sealed windows on all sides ensuring better privacy, there were over 30 rows of seats, almost 150 people sitting. Upon hearing the middle-aged man's inquiry, all those seated turned their heads in surprise to look at Prince Andre, emitting a series of gasps. It truly is. They really do look alike. Give it another 15-16 years, and Prince Andre might just look like this. Indeed, but his face is too cold, not as cute as His Highness Andre. Hey, who are you? Such a rude fellow, guards. Where are the guards? Where is he? Let me see too. Strangely, no matter what they said, including the gallant middle-aged man on the throne, none of them rose. Instead, they stayed firmly seated, twisting their heads to look toward the door. The issue is, the main hall isn't particularly broad, so some couldn't see Prince Andre's appearance no matter how they twisted. Even a slight move on their part would suffice, yet not one stood up. They preferred to remain seated, even if twisted into awkward postures, rather than abandon their original spots. After a few seconds of silence at the door, Prince Andre responded to no one's words. Instead, he strode boldly into the main hall, stepping across the red carpet down the center aisle, through the more than 30 rows of seats, and stood before the gallant middle-aged man. What on earth? Father! Before the strong middle-aged man could speak, Prince Andre called out, then stepped up onto the platform, swiftly snatching the scepter of time from his grip, and turned towards the queen's seat. How dare you! Seeing the scepter of time, symbolizing the king's identity, taken away, not only did the strong middle-aged man's eyes suddenly widen, but the crowd in the main hall also erupted with anger, scolding and shouting with indignation. Stop! Do you know what you're doing? You fool! You are not worthy of touching that thing. Put down the scepter. Guards! Where are the guards? Come in and seize him. What a nuisance! Prince Andre was bothered by the painful shouting in the main hall and instinctively wanted them to shut up. Unfortunately, Philea being captured meant Adify 01 was not by his side, leaving him unable to silence those people forcefully. Prince Andre had no choice but to sigh, walked with the scepter of time to the queen, and extended his other unoccupied hand to her. Mother, may I have the scepter of division? Staring at the palm extended in front of her, the queen on her seat was stunned, then asked in confusion, Who are you? Why do you look so much like my Andre? I am Andre, mother. Treating the queen with seemingly more patience than the king, amid the clamor and noise in the main hall, Prince Andre explained patiently. Just consider me as someone from 10 years in the future, who needs your scepter to handle some affairs now. Can you give it to me? This may be difficult. After a momentary hesitation, a relatively young-looking queen, who seemed not much older than Andre, clutched the scepter tightly and shook her head. The scepter of division is very important. It can't be given casually. Even if you truly are my Andre, you should have a legitimate reason. And how can you treat your father like this? Return the scepter to him, otherwise. Sigh. What a nuisance. I should have known better than to leave the scepter here. I could have just thrown it upstairs. After another helpless sigh, Andre ignored the queen's words. Instead, he arose, moved to the seat behind the strong middle-aged man, and after a while of exploration, found a strangely calibrated clock, setting all the hands to the furthest point. Click! As the mechanism succeeded in engaging under the spring's push, the bustling main hall became quiet. When Andre appeared again facing the strong middle-aged man, after leaving the seat behind, the old king, with his robe unchanged but his face aged by over 10 years, suddenly revealed a relaxed expression. Andre, there you are. Smiling at Prince Andre, the aged king said, Today is your day to succeed the throne. As long as you take the scepter of time from me, you will be the next king of Kralik Kingdom. Come, let me... Hey, where's my scepter? Thank you, father. I'll take it. After responding expressionlessly, Prince Andrei quickly returned in front of the queen's seat, and before she could react, snatched the scepter of division, then descended the platform with both scepters, heading towards the metal spiral staircase on one side of the main hall. The attendees in the main hall, seemingly dumbfounded by the prince snatching the scepter act, stared in shock at Prince Andrei's back, not daring to speak. Finally, the old king slammed the armrest angrily and shouted, "Stop! Andrei! What are you trying to do?
Andre,
Are you rebelling against me? Speak up. What do you plan to do with my scepter?" No matter how the old king interrogated, Prince Andrei continued to remain silent, carrying the two scepters up the spiral staircase, deaf to everything, making his way upwards until, "Are you going to see your so-called sister again? The real Phylea has long been dead. She is now a part of Adify. Wake up!" As if triggered by a keyword, hearing the old king's roar, Prince Andrei stopped abruptly. Turning back, he glared at the old king, as if he had a stomachful of grievances ready to burst out. But seeing the old king remain as he was, unable to truly rise despite his fury, and just sitting on the throne shouting at him, Andrei couldn't help but laugh self-deprecatingly. After shaking his head, he withdrew his gaze and set foot on the metal spiral staircase, leaving the main hall. Even as he departed from the main hall, the old king's furious roar continued to echo from below.
Andre,
"You scoundrel! Get back here! You! Come back! As my last son. If you return, I can choose to let bygones be bygones." It's already reached this point, yet he talks about letting bygones be bygones? Shaking his head slightly, Prince Andrei's metal spiral staircase rose slowly, taking him all the way to the top of the palace, before arriving at the face of a 3-meter-high gigantic clock with only the second hand constantly ticking. After checking the time on his pocket watch, Prince Andrei took the scepters seized from the king and queen's hands, fitting them over the exposed axle at the center of the clock, aligning them with the corresponding position on the dial as per the current time. Click! The crisp sound of mechanism engaging reached his ears. As the two scepters touched the dial, the enormous clock, over 3 meters high, receded backward. It then rolled open clockwise, revealing the secret room hidden behind it. "Andrei, brother?" Before Prince Andrei could step into the room, the voice from inside made him shiver. Sorrow, surprise, pain, disbelief, the weak calling, identical in tone to a certain Princess Phylea, but entirely different in emotion, suddenly resounded in the dark secret room. "Are you here this time to shut me down? Stop mimicking her voice." After a few seconds of silence, Prince Andrei said with a look of disgust, "Adify, this is my final warning to you. If you truly don't want to be shut down, stop this nonsense. All right?" Upon hearing Prince Andrei's warning, the voice in the secret room chuckled slightly, then switched to a somewhat familiar female voice, kindly and softly saying, "How's the queen's voice then? Of all the voices I've used, hers relaxes you the most, and you show your best patience, readily making concessions to me. Suit yourself." Apparently unwilling to argue with Adify over this issue, Prince Andrei snorted and said with unfriendly expression, "Give me your core. I want to take it to research area number 1. "Oh? Why?" The voice in the room responded with curiosity. "Although Adify 01 is my creation, this imperfect Zero prototype controls a maximal computing power far less than 1/12 of 01's capacity. Since there's a more effective 01 now, why are you risking enabling me? Because Phylea has been captured. Her whereabouts are unknown for now, but I need her to handle something." Seemingly lacking fondness for this Adify, mimicking his mother's voice, Prince Andrei replied expressionlessly, "Hence, I must reactivate you to channel Adify 01's processing power, temporarily dominate the entire Kralik kingdom, and swiftly retrieve Phylea. If truly unrecoverable, then craft me another 01. It's impossible. That child is unique." After listening to Prince Andrei's request to create another 01, Adify00 said with a hint of amusement. You know, our ancestor was a very powerful cleaner, one who transcended the difference between man and God. The bloodline she left behind naturally has a more special brain than ordinary people. The hippocampus and temporal lobe cortex are extremely remarkable, and the connection between the frontal and parietal lobes is incredibly developed. Even among the 900-year history of the Kralik royal family, spanning 37 generations, the excellence of Philea's brain is indisputably the first, with unparalleled potential. That's why I persuaded your father to extract her brain as the core to replace my immature prototype when Philea was just 12, balancing brain activity and plasticity for the first time, making it the heart of the entire Kralik kingdom, to lead the kingdom to unprecedented heights. Sorry, I forgot. You seem to dislike hearing this. After an insincere apology, Adify00 said gleefully in Prince Andrei's prolonged silence. Or you could think I did it on purpose. After all, you took everything away from me and locked me in this boring place. It's only normal for the incomplete separation of human emotions and technology back then to leave a bit of resentment. It doesn't matter. Your emotions are irrelevant to me. Responding with a blank expression, Prince Andrei coldly said, Moreover, according to your words, what's truly irreplaceable is Philea's brain, and her original brain is still stored in Adify01's core. Taking away just a core program. And since it's a program, it should be replicable, and there shouldn't be an irreplaceable possibility. If Philea's brain hasn't been damaged, there should be as many Adify01s as needed. That's not the case. As if waiting for Prince Andrei to ask this, Adify00 smiled as she explained. Things running on machines are called programs, but the true core of Adify01 is not those ultramicro differential engines, but Philea's unique brain. Even with special gel capable of conducting electrical signals, connecting her brain to the machine achieving a perfect zero-loss data exchange, those things easily replicated can't truly control a human brain. What's the core program then? What can perfectly operate in a physical body, other than the soul? Adify00 said with a smile. The kingdom's research on the soul may not be deep, but determining its basic nature and utilizing it at the most fundamental level is barely achievable. The body and soul are integral, one of the fundamental rules of this world. Since Philea's brain maintains activity, her soul carrying her personality and self-awareness couldn't fully detach. Even though the production process excessively stimulated the amygdala, hippocampus, and basal ganglia, clearing her emotions and human thoughts and causing the soul to have many blanks, her soul indeed didn't leave. The so-called core program is actually the uniquely preserved soul of Philea, capable of traversing machinery and flesh freely in the form of electrical signals. I've said many times that child is unique, but this refers not just to her brain but also to her special soul. Adify00 sighed and said, while creating Adify01, the special technology one developed called Soul Code must be used. And to withstand this technological transformation while maintaining cognitive ability without collapse, only Philea and I can do so. The other Adify clones you created only copied part of 01's data, thereby accepting part of a rudimentary encoding defect product, still unable to fully replace humans, and the computational power they can control isn't at our level. Considering this technology was developed based on Kralik royal family special brain, and since you turned the Kralik royal family into this state, in the future, not even these defective products can be made. Using one means one less, alas. It doesn't matter. It's best if things like you are gone. Stopping Adify00's sigh, Prince Andrei coldly urged. Hurry up. How long will it take to disconnect your core and hand it to me? Don't rush. Don't rush. It's almost done. Somewhat displeased, Adify00 responded, and footsteps echoed in the dim room. A slender female hand stretched from the darkness, holding a brain enveloped in transparent gel, offering it to Prince Andrei. Take it. Remember to store it below 12 degrees before installing it, and don't bump or expose it to intense light. Replace the nutrient solution every 6 hours and replenish the 24 corresponding. Don't be so rough. I'm your aunt's brain after all. Don't damage me. Enough with the nonsense. Impatiently responding, Prince Andrei received the insulation box handed by the female hand, tossed the brain wrapped in gel into it, and then spoke displeasedly. You could have directly packed yourself and handed it to me. Why must you let me see your brain? Because it's interesting. The teasing tone of Adify 00 came from the copper tube on the side of the special insulation box. Probably recalling Philea back in the day, so whenever you see a naked human brain, your expression is always intriguing. I'm very interested in your reaction. By the way, since my computational power is only 1/12 of Adify 01's, controlling the entire kingdom fully still requires some clone assistance. There are several spare insulation boxes in my room. Remember to conveniently bring more brains when you pass through the first floor's preservation hall, preferably your father's and elder brother's brains. Got it. Responding impatiently, Andrei headed towards the metal spiral staircase, expressing displeasure. Can't the boring little theater on the first floor be turned off directly? Must they perform endlessly? Let them continue. Hearing Prince Andrei's complaint, the voice of Adify 00 in the insulation box chuckled. Although there are other ways to preserve Adify clones, whether freezing directly at low temperatures or sterilizing solidification with amber fluid, there's a lengthy recovery period when reusing afterward. Putting them in the first floor's hall to engage in basic activities at minimal frequency based on shared life experiences is equivalent to merely dreaming, not only maintaining neuronal activity over time but also allowing immediate use upon awakening, an unmatched preservation method. Oh, right. At this point, Adify 00 curiously asked, 128 clone was taken by you and hasn't been returned. Was it lost for some reason? Sort of. Prince Andrei nodded at the mention. I placed it in a sky clipper, but that sky clipper was incinerated abroad. Adify 128 is now missing, and the prince sent to explain this incident is the one who kidnapped Philea. Though evidence is lacking, I suspect Adify 128 is also in that man's hands, and your first task upon taking over the entire kingdom again is to help me find that person. The file with encoding 240612 is his information. All right, my dear nephew. What did you say? Prince Andrei killed the entire royal family? Just as Prince Andrei climbed into the carriage with a thermal box and left the palace, Leon and others on the other end also completed their preliminary interrogation of Philea. After learning the current state of the Kralik royal family from the green-eyed girl, several cleaners from the Scorpio branch, whether alive or dead, were all greatly shocked. Even Leon couldn't help but have his pupils constrict. Although there was some vague speculation about the situation of the Kralik royal family, hearing it confirmed directly from one of the parties involved, Leon couldn't help but feel a slight chill in his heart. It must be understood that the primary objective of this investigation task was to ensure the continuation of the Kralik kingdom royal bloodline. Currently, the only two who could be considered alive in the entire Kralik royal family, apart from the strange little girl in front of him, was the Prince Andrei, who was the perpetrator. This is really... Subconsciously shaking his head slightly, Leon gestured for Alger and others to calm down, then continued to ask, Then what about you? Why did he kill all the royal family members? Except you. Maybe because I'm his sister. Suspecting that revealing her identity as Adify 01 would lead to an even worse outcome, the green-eyed girl sniffed and, with tears in her eyes, made up a story. Brother Andrei still values family, so towards me... Hey! Stop! Stop! Ha ha ha! Stop! I'll remind you once again. Lying in front of me is useless. Holding a small tuft of freshly plucked wool, Leon scratched the sole of Philea's soft foot and said seriously, You better be honest and explain why he didn't kill you and what's going on with your soul. Futilely kicking her legs twice, but unable to break free from Leon's grip, Philea closed her eyes in despair and shouted defiantly, I won't tell you, even if... Ouch! Ha ha! Ha ha ha! Seeing that she had become stubborn, refusing to confess, Leon continued to scratch with the wool. And the black goat, as one of the great demons, despite its current misfortune, its wool remained of superior quality, lightweight, smooth, soft, and dense, far exceeding that of ordinary wool. making it extremely effective for tickling the soles. Before Leon had scratched a few more times, the tormented Philea screamed twice, her toes curling desperately like scallions, squeezing tiny horizontal folds onto her soft soles. Her whole body was like a little frog lying belly up, her fair little legs kicking with all her might, trying hard to retreat, but she was too weak to break free from Leon's iron grip, leaving her to laugh and sob. You go ahead and tickle. Even if it kills me. Ha 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 ha. I'm not telling. You'll never, find out. Ha 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 ha. Still quite stubborn. After tickling for a full 7 or 8 minutes, seeing Philea's small face covered in sweat, her temples and bangs soaked and sticking in strands on her forehead, but still holding her ground, Leon realized it couldn't be resolved quickly and had to temporarily abandon this method of coercion. Turning to look at the other cleaners. Any other methods you seniors can suggest to make her talk? Well, we do have methods to make people talk, but they're probably not suitable for her. Exchanging glances, the cleaners from the Scorpio branch shook their heads and answered helplessly. After all, she's a member of the Kralik royal family, and a child at that. Our methods are too harsh for her, and her body can't take it. Moreover, her soul is very special. It seems to have its own rules. We don't know how to handle that. So you can't help at all? Receiving their answer, Leon opened and closed his mouth, sighed, but said nothing, though it seemed like he said it all. The cleaners, feeling a bit embarrassed by his sigh, exchanged a few more glances before Reuben suggested, "How about this, since you can tell if she's lying, let's make more guesses. As long as we get close, her soul will surely react, allowing us to know the reasons without her having to speak. The problem is, how to guess." Leon spread his hands. "It's not impossible, but we need to first propose questions to know whether the conclusions are right or wrong. However, we currently have too little information, not even knowing what questions to ask, so there's no way to start." Upon hearing this, the Scorpio branch members also fell silent. After a while, the female cleaner Mona seemed to think of something and hesitantly suggested, "If the lack of information is the issue, how about we raid the archives of District 3? There are a lot of important documents of the Kralik Kingdom stored there. Maybe they can give us some insight." "That sounds like a good suggestion. Let's go. The carriage is here." Nodding, Leon didn't hesitate for a second, knocked out the green-eyed girl glaring at him, hoisted her with bare feet onto his shoulder, and stepped towards the stop by the street. "We've delayed long enough, and Reuben's ability has expired. We need to head to the embassy district to pick someone up. My companion left there knows how to find the palace. Once we have picked up the person, we'll hijack the foreign minister, find the scholar's information in District 1, and see if we can locate District 1 through him, and thus find the original body of Adify 01. Also, the archives are in District 3, so we can handle all 3 things together." The next day, citizens of the Kralik Kingdom, it is now time for the morning news. As the sun crested over the orderly horizon, spilling light across the land of the Kralik Kingdom, a sweet broadcasting voice emanated from the metal speakers scattered throughout the streets and alleys. Yesterday, an attack occurred in District 38. A group of roving criminals from the Kingdom of Orlison detonated a homemade dangerous weapon. The explosion's impact caused most of District 38 to be damaged. The adjoining areas of District 2, the Military District, and District 9, the Production District, experienced tremors from the explosion, resulting in many buildings collapsing and injuring over 150 citizens. Fortunately, no lives were lost in the incident, and all key members of the criminal group have been either captured or killed. The 3 affected blocks will reopen within 15 days. Teske. So noisy. A disheveled man, with tangled hair and beard, grumbled upon being woken by the broadcast outside and begrudgingly climbed out of bed. He took down the scholar's robe hanging on the side of the bed and clumsily pulled it over himself while outside. The sweet broadcasting voice continued. Moreover, another group of roving criminals launched an attack on District 3 at a slightly later time. This group of criminals broke into the embassy, kidnapped the foreign minister, ransacked his office, then raided the archives, and took away a large number of precious documents which are now missing. Citizens are advised to exercise caution while going out. The appearance of the criminal gang is as follows, with two main suspects. The leading culprit is a young man with black hair and black eyes, with handsome features, a well-proportioned but slightly lean physique. Wow, 2 attacks in one day. Things are really not settling down lately. Listening intently to the broadcast, the unkempt middle-aged man shook his head, picked up a razor, and began dealing with his beard in front of the mirror. Fortunately, I'm a scholar from District 1, using a private pathway that's not open to the public, unlikely to encounter any criminals. What is this? Seeing the man smiling at him in the mirror, the middle-aged man's mind went blank, his eyes widening in surprise. Damn it, it's supposed to be me in the mirror, so why is there a young man with black hair and black eyes instead? A young man with black hair and black eyes. Why does he seem familiar? You must be Mr. Bell. After flipping through the documents and personal items on the table and confirming the homeowner's identity, Leon turned to look at the scruffy man being held down by Alger and said calmly, "Rest assured, we don't intend to harm you. We just wish to use your identity as a scholar in District 1 to help us with a little something." Humph! Before Leon could make his request, the scruffy man snorted angrily and then said with a harsh expression, "You're those criminals, aren't you? What is it? After attacking Administration District 3, you've now set your sights on Research District 1. Yes. I won't take you there. Don't even think about it." The scruffy man was very stubborn, stiff-necked as he glared angrily at Leon. Research District 1 is the core of the entire Kralik Kingdom, and everything I have was given to me by the kingdom. I absolutely cannot betray it. After casually responding, the sleepless Leon did not continue talking to the scruffy man, but instead said to Alger, who was holding him, "Alger, it's your turn now." "All right." Upon hearing Leon's words, Alger nodded slightly, and his right hand resting on the scruffy man's shoulder instantly dispersed, transforming into countless threads finer than hair, softly hanging on his shoulder. "What is this? What are you going to do?" In the scruffy man's terrified gaze, the strange threads hanging on his shoulder broke through the skin like earthworms, drilling into his body one by one. And then, before he could react in shock, those threads, so fine they were nearly transparent, began moving through the crevices of his muscle fibers towards his limbs. In just a few breaths, these bizarre threads traversed his entire body, completely taking over his will. Even his eyelids and tongue were implanted with at least dozens of threads, rendering him completely immobile. That's about it. After feeling a slight bulge of threads on the thinnest part of the skin behind the scruffy man's earlobes, Alger, whose entire right arm had disappeared up to the shoulder, nodded and said to Leon, "Mr. Bell is now under my control. If he exhibits any abnormal behavior, I'll be the first to notice and stop him, ensuring he has no chance to call for help. Thanks for your hard work." After nodding at Alger, Leon, under the scruffy man's terrified gaze, searched his pockets and pulled out his small notebook. After glancing at the schedule written inside, he said, "Let's go. It's now time for Mr. Bell to start work. We should be on our way." "On our way? You? Ah!" Upon hearing Leon's words, the scruffy man was terrified to find that it felt like another set of bones and muscles were exerting force within his body, and he really raised his hand to twist open the door and stepped out. And the young man with black hair and eyes, along with the burly man missing a right arm, followed behind him directly onto the street, completely unabashed. What was even more strange was that facing these criminals whose physical features matched exactly with those broadcasted, and hadn't even changed clothes, the pedestrians on the street seemed not to see them, showing no reaction at all. How is this possible? Could they be invisible? While the scruffy man was perplexed, Leon already inserted his identification card into the roadside navigation device, sending out a request to head to Research District 1, and then followed the tall man missing an arm into the hover car that came to pick them up. "Mr. Leon." Perhaps feeling unsure, after the hover car started moving, Alger couldn't help but ask, "Are we just going straight over like this? Wouldn't using Mona's forward path Be safer. It's fine, just go like this. Sitting beside the scruffy man, Leon continued flipping through the documents seized yesterday while answering without looking up. I've thoroughly checked. The technology in Kralik Kingdom doesn't include surveillance-like systems. The effect of Secret Tail is enough to blend us past ordinary checkpoints. Considering the few specially developed large experimental areas surrounding, the total area of Research District 1 is about over 60 square kilometers, which is not small. We just need to be careful not to get too close to the core area or appear in too open spaces. The chances of being discovered are not high. That's good then. Reassured by Leon's assurance, Alger relaxed a little, then curiously looked at Leon's, who was busy flipping through the documents. Mr. Leon, are these seized documents ordinary data? You've been reading them all night. Haven't you finished yet? No, I've only looked through about 1/10 of them now. Then, have you discovered anything? Somewhat. Flipping through the thick Korluk mineral resource policy in his hands, along with the Major Energy and Core Material Balances annual report for comparison, Leon said with a cool expression. Although Kralik Kingdom isn't large in terms of area, its resource consumption is astonishingly high. Just for hover crystal alone, it consumes over 100,000 tons each year. Whale fat, coal, special ores, and various rare metals are calculated in millions of tons. Isn't that normal? Alger thought about it and said, somewhat confused, I don't understand this very well, but I've heard that despite Kralik Kingdom being small, like Thousand Sails Maritime Country Seal, it's a trade-driven nation that sells a vast amount of products every year. This consumption doesn't seem unusual, does it? This consumption is not unusual, and considering Kralik Kingdom's trade volume, it could even be considered low, but the real issue lies in how these resources are obtained. Holding his charcoal pencil, Leon circled a few areas on the map attached to the mineral resource policy. Frowning. Kralik Kingdom's territory isn't large, but there are many mining zones that it actually controls for the sole purpose of supporting the kingdom. While these mining zones are small on their own and extremely scattered in location, they total over 100, either developed temporarily, semi-permanently leased, or outright purchased, amassing over 400,000 square kilometers. What? Upon hearing Leon's words, Alger couldn't help but be shocked. So many? Our kingdom of Orlison has such a large territory, but only just over 1 million square kilometers. I thought Kralik Kingdom was a small nation with just over 20,000 square kilometers. Whether it's a small country or not depends on how you calculate it. Leon began explaining. Those over 400,000 square kilometers of land are not directly occupied by the Kralik Kingdom. Most of it is rented from other kingdoms and city-states, so it won't appear on any map. Even the Kralik Kingdom doesn't acknowledge it. Officially, the territory recognized by the Kralik Kingdom consists of only these 800 or so districts, and only the residents of these districts are considered citizens of the Kralik Kingdom, so you wouldn't be wrong to call it a small country. Not small at all. Upon hearing this, Alger quickly shook his head and said, no matter how you calculate it, a country that effectively controls over 400,000 square kilometers cannot be considered small. But if the real controlled area is so large, why doesn't the Kralik Kingdom simply acknowledge these places? Because that's the most profitable way. Upon hearing Alger's curious question, Leon couldn't help but squint slightly, recalling the misfortunes of the bandit siblings. The Cheshire they came from is one of the Kralik Kingdom's mining areas, where everything is controlled by the Kralik Kingdom, with almost no external trade, and even food and some necessities have to be exchanged for mined hover crystal stones. Under these conditions, the more than 10,000 people in Cheshire spend their entire lives revolving around the mines, providing a constant supply of hover crystal stones for the Kralik Kingdom, and there are more than 100 such mining areas. Even if not all mining areas require so much labor, nor do they all suffer as miserably as Cheshire, the number of ordinary people directly or indirectly enslaved by the Kralik Kingdom is still probably in the millions. As long as they don't acknowledge actual control over these mining areas, the Kralik Kingdom can wash its hands of them, using these millions as consumables to exploit the resources they need, with almost no cost. Is that possible? Upon hearing Leon's analysis and the tragic tales of the bandit siblings, Algi's face flushed slightly with anger, his eyes full of indignation as he spoke. Can't anyone do anything about this? Just let the Kralik Kingdom do as they please. Who would do it? The Cleanup Bureau? After glancing at this simple-minded strongman, Leon said, the ancestors of the Kralik royal family are the residents of the Watcher's Palace. The Cleanup Bureau's task is to protect the Kralik royal family and combat the abnormal beings attempting to invade the human world. Managing the Kralik Kingdom's affairs is not the Cleanup Bureau's responsibility. As for other kingdoms, don't even think about it. The Kralik Kingdom's technology is at least 100 years ahead of the others, so even though it has a small population, its military strength is not weak at all. Moreover, the Kralik Kingdom has paid for these mining areas and even transferred a lot of technology to get the exploitation rights from other kingdoms. Who would stand up to manage them? The other kingdoms that sold them the mines. Forget it, we can't do anything about this sort of situation. After learning about the business model of the Kralik Kingdom through stolen information, Leon had already made up his mind to take action against this B kingdom when given the chance. However, he remained composed and said, we're just two ordinary cleaners. Our main task right now is to investigate the situation in Research Area 1, find Adify 01, who is controlled by Prince Andre, and confirm if the royal family is truly dead, and if they are, figure out a way. What did you say? At this point, the scruffy man, who had been eavesdropping since Leon and his companion began chatting, suddenly couldn't hold it in any longer. He jumped out of his seat, shouting in shock, the royal family is dead? Algi, sir. Seeing the scruffy man standing opposite, Leon couldn't help but emphasize his tone, slightly frowning with dissatisfaction as he spoke. Didn't you just promise me that if he had any extreme reactions, you would definitely anticipate and stop him? I'm sorry, I was careless. Upon hearing Leon's words, Algi looked down with a guilty face and said, I was a little engrossed in listening earlier, and my reaction speed has decreased a bit compared to yesterday, so I didn't respond in time. Sorry. I'll definitely be more careful from now on. All right, there's no helping it. Upon hearing Algi's response, Leon shook his head helplessly and then instructed, let's let it go this time, but you need to be careful from now on. For now, I can use the secret tail to cover it up, but if we suddenly have a slip-up like this once we're inside Research Area 1, we'll be in danger. I'm sorry. I will never make such a mistake again. All right then, control Mr. Bell first, and wait a minute. Seeing these two fugitive criminals preparing to control him again, the scruffy man's expression became anxious, and he proactively lowered his voice to say, what did you just say? The entire royal family is dead. Hooked. After glancing at the scruffy man's wildly fluctuating soul, Leon slightly raised his eyebrow and then, frowning, spoke to Algi. Sorry, I was a bit careless too. We shouldn't have discussed such key information in front of him. You should control him first. No, don't control me. Upon hearing Leon's intention to have the strongman control him, the scruffy man quickly said, I can help you. Don't silence me. This. After a slight hesitation, Leon shook his head and refused. Sorry, this matter is too important. We can't trust you. If you verbally offer help but actually try to alert others, then I won't. The scruffy man said anxiously. I was a classmate of Lord Fine. I was granted the status of a level 4 scholar personally by Lord Fine. Is there really something wrong with the royal family? If you can prove that you weren't lying earlier, I can help you get in. Got him. Upon hearing the words of the scruffy man, Leon couldn't help but smile slightly. He had long since learned from the stolen information that the scruffy man was a staunch supporter of the monarchy. Given his relationship with the old king, once he heard the news that the royal family might have been entirely eradicated, he would be unable to restrain himself, eager to find out the truth, which falls right into their hands, perfectly aligning with his plan. After all, Research Area 1 is so important, and Prince Andre, the suspected mastermind, would be an idiot not to guard it tightly. His secret tail isn't all-powerful, Even if they find a scholar from Research Area 1 and use an abnormal object to replace his identity, without his knowledge and memories, unfamiliar with his relationships and the rules of Research Area 1, they would be exposed in no time. So the only way to successfully infiltrate is to convince this scruffy man to willingly guide them both. And instead of laboriously persuading him and reasoning with him to seek his help, it's naturally more reliable to lay the bait first, wait for him to take the initiative to speak, and finally plead to be of help. But, looking at the anxious, disheveled man before him, Leon hesitated for a moment, then said helplessly, "Forget it, we don't have any other choice now. We can only trust you this once. But let's be clear, our original goal was just to complete the investigation and ascertain the state of the Kralik royal family. We didn't plan on harming you. But if you alert anyone, don't blame us. I assure you I won't. I swear it." Seeing that Leon and his companion were still hesitant to trust him even after he chose to voluntarily surrender, the last bit of doubt in the disheveled man's heart was dispelled, and after swearing an oath, he urgently asked, "What exactly happened to the royal family? Is His Majesty truly dead?" "About 90% dead." Leon sighed and said, "From the information we've gathered so far, the whole Kralik royal family is down to 2 living people. Almost all the members with royal blood have had their brains extracted by Prince Andrei, turned into Adify subjects." "What?" Upon hearing the truth Leon revealed, the disheveled man seemed struck by lightning. Eyes wide with shock, he said, "Prince Andrei, how can this be? It's absurd. I don't believe it." "To be honest, we don't believe it either," Leon said with a look of frustration. "I understand your feelings. We couldn't believe it when we first heard this news either, but the source is quite reliable. That's why we thought of using you to sneak into Research Area 1 to see if we could verify this information." "This?" Seeing Leon's furrowed brows and troubled expression, the disheveled man couldn't help but clench his fists and fall into hesitation as well. People can be so contradictory. If Leon had revealed the truth upon meeting him, stating that the Kralik royal family was in trouble and hoping for his help, he would likely have been met with suspicion and guardedness, perhaps even betraying them. But by being secretive and making him ask for clarity, while showing an attitude of non-belief but having to take the risk due to duty, the eager-to-know disheveled man would subconsciously find the information highly credible. After hesitating for a while, the disheveled man, who initially insisted on not cooperating, couldn't help but grit his teeth, lower his voice and say, "Where did you get your information?" Why are you asking that?" Upon hearing his inquiry, Leon squinted his eyes, adopting a wary posture and questioned intently, "Do you know something?" I knew you were suspicious." Leon slightly cooled his expression, full of doubt as he said, "Even though you're kidnapped by us, you're not worried about your own safety and actually took the initiative to talk. Moreover, you're asking about such crucial information. Speak. What relationship do you have with Prince Andrei?" "You misunderstand me." Seeing Leon starting to suspect him, the disheveled man hurriedly said, "I really have nothing to do with Andrei. I'm with King Fine. That's just your word. How am I to know if it's true?" Feeling frustrated by Leon's suspicions, the disheveled man scratched his head for a while, then suddenly lit up, reached into his chest, and took out a pocket watch, opening the lid as he handed it over. "Look, this is a picture of me and King Fine, taken when we graduated from the 2nd Metal Academy. I've carried it with me all these years." After inspecting the pocket watch and seeing 2 young men standing side by side, smiling brightly in the photo inside the lid, Leon looked up with some doubt and asked, "Is this picture of you?" "It's me." "Really?" "Yes. I was very thin back then." "All right, although the photo doesn't prove much, I can reluctantly trust you this time." Handing back the closed pocket watch, Leon somewhat reluctantly explained, "Our source is Princess Phylea, the last survivor of the entire Kralik royal family, apart from the criminal Prince Andrei." "Princess Phylea?" After hearing Leon's words, the disheveled man's expression was momentarily stunned. Then his pupils suddenly dilated, and the muscles on both sides of his face involuntarily twitched a couple of times before he forced himself to appear calm and said, "I see. Then it definitely needs proper verification." Is he starting to suspect me again? Seeing the once again swirling, muddied representation of distrust in the disheveled man's soul, Leon raised an eyebrow and straightforwardly questioned, "What about Princess Philea? Why did your expression turn so odd upon hearing her name?" Not expecting his hesitance to be detected so quickly, the disheveled man's heart skipped a beat. Forcing himself to stay steady, he said, "It's nothing, really. It's just that I haven't met Princess Philea many times." "So, you're lying." Leon interrupted the disheveled man's words without hesitation and, fixing his intense gaze on his face, fervently pressured, "What's wrong with Philea? You better explain clearly." "This, Mr. Bell, we're cleanup bureau cleaners. If you're truly a friend of King Fine's, you might have heard him mention us." After briefly explaining the cleaner's work, Leon fixed a cold gaze on the disheveled man and coldly said, "Under normal circumstances, we don't attack ordinary people, but yesterday, 3 of our companions were blown up and 2 more got captured while protecting the royal family of Kralik, and there's been no news since. So now our emotions aren't very stable, and it's hard to guarantee we won't vent on others. You'd better cooperate with our investigation and tell us everything, or don't blame us for using force." Feeling a chill run down his spine under Leon's cold stare, the disheveled man shivered slightly. Stealing a glance at the nearby somber-looking Adifai, who seemed to have genuinely lost a companion, considering that these 2 self-proclaimed cleaners were apparently not enemies of the royal family, the disheveled man gritted his teeth and hesitantly said, "It's not that I don't want to be frank, but Philea died more than 10 years ago. How could she be any kind of survivor?" "Oh? Philea died more than 10 years ago?" Upon hearing the answer from the disheveled man, it was now Leon and his partner's turn to be taken aback. The emerald-eyed girl's body was intact, soul robust, full of life with no sign of the dead's aura, so Leon never considered this possibility. Yet, after observing the disheveled man's soul and confirming he was telling the truth, at least what he believed to be the truth, Leon furrowed his brow and said, "Are you sure? Could it be that King Fine deceived you, thinking your friendship wasn't that deep, so he didn't tell you the real story?"
Impossible.
Seeing Leon question his friendship with the old king, the disheveled man couldn't help but exclaim angrily, "I met that child. She suddenly fell ill with a brain disease on her 12th birthday and died not long after. Fine adored this daughter, and when Philea died, he left the palace without a single guard, came to my home to cry for a long time. This definitely wasn't a lie. 12th birthday, sudden brain disease." It seemed as if something had been captured vaguely, but it was still a layer of paper away, and Leon couldn't quite pierce through it. He had to note down the information, then frowned and said, "But we did indeed help Princess Philea to free her from Prince Andre's control. After we saved her, she told us that the entire royal family of the Kralik kingdom had been killed by Prince Andre, their brains extracted and made into Adifai subbodies. I even managed to get one." At this point, Leon wiped his cuff link and took out Adifai 128, then used the cutting silver dagger to slice open its casing, slightly opening a small hole, revealing the brain inside wrapped in transparent gel. "Look," handing Adifai 128 over for the scruffy man to examine its contents, Leon continued, "After learning about the royal family situation, I immediately cut open this subbody and checked inside. I discovered there really was a living brain inside, and this brain did indeed belong to the Kralik royal family." While speaking, Leon endured his disgust, cutting open the brain encased in gel, revealing its structure, which was obviously different from an ordinary person's. "Although I don't understand brain structure, according to her, the brains of the Kralik royal family are different from ordinary people. These areas are unusually developed, several times more so than an average person's." Pointing with the tip of his dagger at those special areas in the brain, allowing the scruffy man to recognize them, Leon rejoined the cut with his fingers, wiping away the cut marks, and restored Atify 128 to its original state, frowning as he said, "In addition, to help Philea escape control, I also temporarily cut open her brain to extract the implanted information fragment, and the internal structure of her brain did indeed resemble this one. So whether the information is true or false, she is a member of the Kralik royal family, plus the brain inside Atify 128 is evidence. I believe her information is highly credible. But she's really dead." Upon seeing the evidence Leon provided, the scruffy man who had just insisted his information was absolutely correct was momentarily bewildered, murmuring with a blank look, "Could it be she was brought back to life later? But if she were resurrected, why didn't Fine tell me? And why hasn't that child appeared again? Brought back to life? That child?" Hearing this, it was as if a wall blocking the way had been toppled, and Leon finally grasped that elusive inspiration, urgently asking, "Mr. Bell, I ask you, what is the relationship between Prince Andre and Princess Philea? They are both children of the Queen, so their relationship is naturally good. Andre is a bit older, and always took good care of his sister, and while Philea was alive, she was very attached to him." "I see. Then, in your first research district, is there any technology that can resurrect people?" "How could that be?" Hearing Leon's words, the scruffy man said speechlessly, "Science can't achieve everything. Even if you could replicate a body, what about the soul? Even the first research district has very limited knowledge about souls." "Wait!" At this point, he seemed to suddenly think of something, and the scruffy man hissed, his cheeks twitching slightly as he said, "Although our first district doesn't have resurrection technology, we do have a way to create bodies. Just last month, we made a breakthrough, creating dozens of empty shell persons without souls but that are alive. Empty shell people without souls. That fits." With a vague hypothesis, Leon pondered briefly, then continued to ask, "Mr. Bell, when was Atify created? Does it overlap with the time Philea suddenly fell ill?" Upon hearing Leon's question, the scruffy man was momentarily stunned, and once he realized what Leon was suspecting, his face flushed with anger. "Don't talk nonsense. Atify has been around for a long time. Even when Fine's twin sister was still alive, the first research district already had the prototype of similar technology. Although it wasn't as advanced as now, the intelligence was already at the same level as a human. Now Atify 01 is just a second-generation improvement." "All right." Leon nodded at these words, his gaze burning as he said, "Then when was the improved Atify 01 created? Does it coincide with the time of Philea's death from brain illness?" "Mr. Bell, in terms of timing, it's quite close. About a week after Philea died from a brain disease, the Atify 01 project, which was at a standstill, made a breakthrough. Realizing the truth of the matter, it seemed as if it really could be as Leon suspected. The scruffy man opened his mouth and said weakly, "But it shouldn't be like this, Fine. He was very fond of Philea, and he was genuinely distraught that day, so I think, Mr. Bell, sometimes people even deceive themselves." Leon thought for a moment, then said, "Under pressure, some people make decisions they don't agree with, and to avoid being alienated by those around them, they choose to conceal the truth. Their tears may be real, but it's hard to say what they're truly crying for. Besides, you can also see it in a positive light. The truth might not be so cruel. It's possible that Philea really suffered an acute illness, and to keep his daughter, King Fine chose to do so. But if that's the case, Mr. Bell, we currently lack information. Everything is speculation, but some things can almost be confirmed." Interrupting the scruffy man, amidst his conflicted expression of uncertainty, Leon hinted, "Years ago, for some reason, the young Princess Philea died, and her brain was extracted, becoming the core of Atify 01 like these subbodies. And years later, for some reason, Prince Andre killed all the royal family members, extracting their brains and making them into Atify subbodies, giving them the same fate as his sister. After doing all this, he used your first research district's technology to recreate a Princess Phylea, gave her the status of a princess, arranged for a princess-level guard, as though trying to make up for something, truly treating her as his sister. Mr. Bell. Glancing at the silent, scruffy man, Leon said, "In my personal judgment, the massacre that occurred in the Kralik royal family is likely a revenge from the older brother." Indeed, the shabby man heard this and couldn't help but lower his head, his eyes becoming increasingly complex. Andre, when he was a child, was a very lively and cheerful kid, but after Phylea died, he became more and more silent, and more reclusive, rarely stepping outside. Fine's temper also gradually became odd, and after the death of the prince, he became even more irritable and prone to anger, distancing himself from this friend, even speaking harshly, and all these changes seem to have started from Phylea's death due to her brain illness. If Phylea didn't die from her brain illness, but was, then all the inexplicable parts seem like they can be explained clearly. Andre's motive for massacring the royal family was to avenge his murdered sister, and the person who made the decision at the time to allow Phylea to be killed could only be the king. Fine. Mr. Bell. Glancing at the shabby man with a pained expression, Leon comforted him. All of this now is still just our speculation. The situation may not be so extreme, and whether we can find out what happened back then depends on whether you can take us into Research Area 1. I'll do it. Hearing Leon's words, the shabby man, coming to his senses, first clenched his fist, then actively asked, "What were you planning to do originally? Directly control me and then follow all the way?" "Yes." "Then you wouldn't even get past the first checkpoint." After giving his judgment, the shabby man said seriously, "Even if you have a way to make others not see you, most of Area 1's core is underground, and the shaft leading underground can only enter one person at a time, and there is only one position it's impossible to squeeze in even if forced. Even if you have a way to enter underground and break the integrally cast inner wall, there is still a series of different detection methods in the entire Area 1. As long as one is triggered, the alarm will immediately sound, and each area will immediately self-seal, split into more than 20 small areas and then move." "I see." Upon hearing this, Leon raised his brows slightly, then politely inquired, "Then, in your opinion, what should we do?" "In my opinion, you might as well give up entering Area 1 completely," the shabby man said. "You cleaners have many special abilities, some of which even miraculously contradict the laws of science. But the detection methods in Research Area 1 are staggering: heat, smell, magnetic field, abnormal fluctuations, brain signals, just more than 20 kinds that I know of. And because there was an incident of a previous cleaner infiltration, there are now some techniques specifically targeting people like you. No matter what strange abilities you have, if you don't hide in another layer of space and need to physically enter Area 1, there will always be moments where you can't hide. And the positions of these detection instruments are not completely fixed either. They are moved periodically with specially assigned personnel for supervision. And if any suspected damage or signal disconnection occurs, it will likewise call for an investigation. Isn't it? Although I know how important Area 1 is, isn't this too much defense? Don't you guys find it troublesome?" After blinking speechlessly, Leon couldn't help but ask, "Can I ask, what exactly did that cleaner do when infiltrating Area 1 back then to make you defend so tightly?" "That cleaner." Hearing Leon's question, the shabby man's mouth twitched slightly. Then he said with an odd expression, "It was about 30 years ago that person heard that Area 1 had research on body regeneration, so they directly broke in and kidnapped 40 scholars of level 3 or above, demanding that we resurrect his dog, and if we couldn't, he would burn all our research data." What a character. Although knowing this wasn't the time to ask about this matter, Leon couldn't help but ask upon hearing such an absurd situation. "And then? Did you guys resurrect his dog?" "It's because we didn't succeed that we're on such high alert now, afraid someone else might break in," the shabby man said with a face full of grievance. "To send that person off, we tossed around for 2 weeks, even managing to create a similar dog, restoring even the missing tail tip. But that person still wasn't satisfied, made a huge fuss, although in the end, they didn't actually destroy the data. They made quite a scene, causing the scholars who were tied up considerable trouble, and only then were they dragged off by your cleanup bureau people. Oh dear. Hearing about the outrageous actions of a past cleaner, Leon clicked his tongue, finding it hard to hold steady for a while. Never thought the ruckus caused by a cleaner 30 years ago would cause me to struggle so much 30 years later. It's really a case of the predecessors chop the trees, and the successors suffer under the sun. And after that predecessor's havoc, the current research area 1 learns from the past and directly maxes out the preventive measures. Relying on just a secret tale, it may really not be enough to sneak in. Frowning in thought for a while, Leon glanced at the shabby man, then said thoughtfully, "Then, Mr. Bell, if research area 1 is hard to enter, then according to your idea, my idea is, if you need any information, I'll check it out for you." The shabby man clenched his fists. With a determined face he proposed, "No matter what exactly happened back then, fine is my friend. If he really might have been killed, then I have to find out the truth. You better think it through." After glancing at the shabby man, Leon reminded, "Mr. Bell, this matter is very dangerous. If you get discovered while investigating and we're not around you, we won't have a way to protect you." "It's fine. I'm not afraid of death." The shabby man clenched his teeth, as if out of extreme nervousness. Beads of sweat appeared on his graying temples, but he still firmly said, "If it weren't for Fine pulling me up back then, I would have been just a poor student all my life, never having a chance to realize my ambitions. If I end up in trouble for helping you investigate, then that'll be my way of repaying his favor." "All right." Seeing the shabby man insisting repeatedly, Leon had no choice but to sigh and agree to his proposal, then gestured to Alger to remove the strings in the shabby man's body, then said with slight admiration, "Mr. Bell, for the next 3 days we'll be hiding at the embassy in Administrative Area 3. If you find anything, you can find us there." "Okay." As the shabby man nodded vigorously, the hovercar approaching its destination began to decelerate. He then expressionlessly got off the hovercar, and under the watchful eyes of Leon and the other, he entered the shaft leading to Research Area 1. Ding! Accompanied by the sound of the passage bell, the single-person passage in front of the shabby man opened. He steadfastly stepped inside, then rolled his eyes and collapsed onto the ground with a thud. Meanwhile, on the control desk in the central hall of Research Area 1, a small red light quietly lit up, flashing for several beats in a specific rhythm, and the operator at the control desk, who had been watching the indicator light closely, stood up with a start. "Brain activity of receptor code 9 is abnormal, possibly in close contact with the target. The memory decoding has just been completely finished. We confirm it's the target." After notifying Prince Andre across from her, a woman who resembled Philea but looked much more mature took a sip of coffee and then praised with a smile, "Dear Andre, can you tell your auntie how you thought the target might contact the scholar in Zone 1? That's not important." After glancing at her face, Prince Andre frowned and said, "Hurry up with your work. It's been almost 10 hours since they contacted the target. They should have returned to Administrative Zone 3 by now. What you need to do is capture them and bring Philea back to me. Not leisurely drink coffee here. So unlovable." Adify 00 shook her head and said helplessly, "I haven't had coffee in nearly 30 years. Could you let your auntie rest a bit? Moreover, this flesh creation technology is quite good. When I modified my soul back then, I thought I would stay in cold machines for the rest of my life. I didn't expect to have a body again one day. It's just a pity that this body's tongue isn't great. It's too sensitive to bitterness and sweetness, not as accustomed to coffee as my original one. But considering this body was modified from Philea's spare body, a child's tongue being a bit sensitive isn't much of a problem." "Why do you talk so much nonsense?" Prince Andre said impatiently. "Get to work. I'm not interested in chatting with you. I'm working. After pouting slightly, Adify 00 put down the coffee cup, crossed her arms with dissatisfaction and said, "Andre, aren't you being a bit disrespectful to me? Although you're holding the scepter of time division, and I can't disobey your orders as the developer of soul encoding, I still have the ability to exploit some rules and cause you trouble. If you keep treating me like this, and I accidentally make a noise during the capture operation, letting the person who took your sister run away. Don't blame your auntie for being negligent. Okay. This damn troublesome woman. She's even more annoying than when she was alive. Faced with the threat from Adify00, knowing she has the ability, Prince Andre just clicked his tongue, replied impatiently. Fine, I'll pay attention in the future. Don't say in the future. Make it right now. Having gained the upper hand in the aunt-nephew battle for the first time, Adify00 seemed in a great mood, put down her coffee cup and said with a smile, Come, chat with your auntie first. Tell me how you guessed the target would contact the scholar in Zone 1? You better not overdo it. Rest assured, your auntie is indeed working. Raising her hand to tap her forehead with a fingertip, Adify00 smiled and said, The moment I received the news, I mobilized the army using an info chip to surround the embassy in Administrative Zone 3. There should already be a search underway. Besides, I also increased the adrenaline sprays in Zone 3, activated the force field stones to disperse the abnormal object's power, redirected the ruler-sensing special human magnetic fields, and analysis instruments for abnormal object fluctuations, all to ensure your mission proceeds smoothly. But that's on the condition you behave and chat a bit with your poor auntie, who was confined for years by you. Otherwise, who knows what the outcome may be. Damn it. Once Phylea is found, I'll lock you back up. This time, until I die. Annoyed by Adify00 yet not wanting her to act rashly, Andre could only frown and explain. I contacted Leon who kidnapped Phylea, and to me he's someone with strong purposes, usually wouldn't do meaningless things. With no connection to Scorpio's branch chief if he didn't quickly escape or hide, but immediately attacked Administrative Zone 3 and kidnapped the foreign minister, it proves there must be something he wants in Zone 3, and that whatever it is could solve his problems. So I checked the foreign minister's reception record, found that during his meeting, he particularly inquired about long-distance communication technology and showed great interest in the scholar who invented it. Connecting these dots, I judged he might have targeted a scholar, intending to use that scholar to enter Zone 1 and find the main body of Adify01, thereby dismantling my control over the kingdom. Makes sense. Adify00 nodded, then blinked and said, Because the palace was sealed off by you, he couldn't find it short-term, so you judged his target could only be the Research Zone 1. Thus you ordered me to halt the investigation and use soul encoding technology to rewrite scholars who might contact him, ensuring his whereabouts, correct? TCH, your child may not be brainy enough to be Adify's core, but your brain is quite useful and you have a good eye for people, not bad. Are you satisfied? Receiving Adify00's praise, Prince Andre's face showed no hint of joy, but instead appeared increasingly impatient. Cold-faced, he said, If you're satisfied, then work properly, and tell me the progress in Zone 3. Has the target's location been found? No. Adify00 sighed, and then shrugged with a helpless expression. The instruments I sent have scanned the entire embassy area 3 times but failed to find anyone resembling the target. You seem to be chasing empty air. Looks like going to Research Zone 1 is truly out of the question. Standing on the rooftop of a high building, gazing at the tightly surrounded embassy, Leon couldn't help sighing, relieved for his foresight. Behind him, Alger, observing soldiers holding various strange instruments rapidly breaking and searching everywhere, nervously said, To mobilize so many people and things, it must take 7 or 8 hours at least, right? Did Mr. Bell get exposed so quickly? Leon shook his head and said, Doesn't feel like exposure, rather more like a trap set for us. Alger hesitantly said, But Mr. Bell was quite normal, and didn't you say his soul showed no signs of lying? He really didn't lie, but that doesn't prove his soul isn't flawed. Leon sighed and said, Mr. Bell's soul is somewhat similar to Phylea's, carrying a peculiar precision. It's just that in his soul this feeling is faint, less than 1% of Phylea's, so I didn't notice at first. But out of curiosity, I asked more about 30 years ago, and he seemed not clear on what expression to show when recounting such crazy behavior. His soul slightly stuttered. Otherwise, I might have been deceived too. So is Mr. Bell in trouble too? Were we almost caught? After listening to Leon's words, Alger couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine, with a vague sense of being cornered. The abnormal objects of the cleaners are powerful, but not all cleaners possess the ability to single-handedly defeat 1,000 foes. Most cleaners' beings remain human, and they bleed and get injured just the same. Cleaners like me, who lack group attack capabilities, once surrounded by a well-organized army and subjected to hot weapon collective fire or even powerful artillery bombardment, might hold out a little longer, but in the end, death would be inevitable. In terms of hot weapon skills, if the Kralik Kingdom claims second place, no one in the world dares to claim first. My abilities, which lean more towards support, really struggle in this country. Mr. Leon. Looking at the fiery hot 3rd Administrative District in the distance, Alger hesitantly asked, "What should we do next? Should we continue the investigation in the 1st District?" Upon hearing this, Leon glanced at him and shook his head, saying, "No need, we've learned almost everything we need to investigate." "Ha! For us, there are only 2 pieces of crucial information in the 1st District." Leon raised a finger and said, "The first important piece of information is the exact location of Adify 01. Although we haven't entered the core area, I roamed around the outskirts and memorized the soul waves of about 50 people, making it much easier to find the 1st District in the future. And by locking onto the location of the 1st Research District, we've essentially locked onto the general position of Adify 01. Our goal is to destroy it, not take it, so knowing the general location is already sufficient. As for the second piece of information, it's confirming who our enemy is. Although Mr. Bell probably has issues to gain our trust, the information he provided might not be false. The central component of Adify 01 is most likely the brain of the former Princess Phylea. If that's the case, we can almost confirm that it was indeed Prince Andrei who slaughtered the royal family. He's the only one capable of ambushing Nicole and Director Andrei. We can set our target on him. But there's still a lot of other things we haven't figured out? Alger asked somewhat confusedly. Like the truth behind those events, why King Fine needed Adify 01 so much, even at the cost of sacrificing his daughter, and why Prince Andrei wanted to massacre the royal family, things like that. The truth behind these matters is also important, but not worth risking our lives to find out. After interrupting Alger's words, Leon said calmly, "If our strength were greater, without having to overly consider our own safety, then we could investigate more, looking into whether there were any hidden troubles or undisclosed causes. But with our current situation, reaching this point is already enough. Once we know the location of Adify 01 and confirm who's against us, dealing with what's next becomes much easier." Much easier? So how is it easier exactly? Why can't I understand? Simply put, once the situation is confirmed, we can start dealing with Prince Andrei. Having noticed Alger's confusion, Leon explained, "I've met with that Prince Andrei and observed his situation. He should be just an ordinary person, so for us, the real trouble isn't his strength but his identity. As the 3rd prince of the Kralik Kingdom and the last survivor of the entire Kralik royal family, his power in this kingdom is immense, capable of mobilizing nearly all the kingdom's resources. He can even command the army, directly block or even bombard an entire district, and with the various detection methods provided by Adify 01, we can't get close to him, not even see him, before being hunted down and directly killed." "Yeah." Alger couldn't help but sigh upon hearing this, then said with a troubled face, "I never thought that ordinary people's things could be so troublesome." The soldiers searching the 3rd Administrative District just tossed out a palm-sized gadget, and in 2 seconds it shook a building into collapse. And those bizarre capture nets that, sticking 2 iron plates underground, can be directly lifted, held by hand, and pushed forward. They seem harmless, yet the trees swept by them immediately carbonized and shattered. "This is really... Don't worry, we don't have to deal with these things." Glancing at the search progress over in the 3rd Administrative District, Leon explained, "In any case, the real trouble is the power his identity represents. If we can somehow neutralize his power, dealing with him becomes much easier." Alger asked puzzledly, "But he is a prince. And he controls the entire Kralik Kingdom's army. How can we make him lose his power? Relax, this I know well. Leon, the chief of the rebels and a master of coups, chuckled. If the Kralik Kingdom were bigger, it might be more difficult, but the area of the entire Kralik Kingdom is just this big, with not many people. It's quite easy to handle. Probably 2 to 3 days would be enough. Huh? Overthrow the Kralik Kingdom in 3 days? After Leon's words, Alger's mind buzzed in chaos, wondering whether he was dreaming or Leon was talking in his sleep. Setting other matters aside, although the Kralik Kingdom is small, it's still a complete nation. To bring down the prince of this country in 3 days, how could that possibly be doable? Alger Sr., the soldiers over there have started expanding their search range. If we don't leave soon, we might be discovered. Seeing through Alger's doubts, Leon didn't explain immediately. Instead, he turned and left the rooftop, then beckoned. Let's go. Let's find a safe place to rest first, then get something to eat. I'll slowly explain how we can topple Prince Andrei within 3 days along the way. All right? Still feeling it unreliable, but given that Leon was quite confident and having no better solutions himself, Alger took another glance at the distant 3rd Administrative District and then turned around to follow hesitantly. Not long after they left, it seemed that the soldiers in the 3rd Administrative District received some orders, leaving a small contingent to continue the thorough search, while the remaining soldiers quickly split into a dozen teams and began scrutinizing all high-rise buildings overlooking the 3rd District. However, when a team of soldiers reached the rooftop, Leon and Alger had long left the high-rise, vanished into the crowd using borrowed identification cards from passers-by. My dear Andrei, in the underground secret chamber of Research Area 1, Adify 00 sitting on the sofa took a sip of cold coffee and then said with a smile, "You have a good eye for people, but it seems they are also quite capable of seeing through you. Judging by the aftermath, he most likely guessed your plan, so he didn't report the real address at all. Instead, he stayed on a rooftop several kilometers away and watched a joke unfold from afar. Your plan was completely seen through, oh." Ignoring Adify 00's ridicule, Prince Andrei remained silent for a moment and then said expressionlessly, "How is the investigation I asked you to do? Are you talking about the records of food and water distribution and unusual travel records, among other things? Those have been seen through, oh." Adify 00 replied with a smile. "They seem to have guessed that you would use such a method to locate their general area of activity, so they stole many identity cards, checking several different blocks each time to avoid their whereabouts being investigated. As for essential items like food and water, there are no records of purchases or distributions either. From what I speculate, they are probably stealing food and only taking small amounts each time, making it impossible to trace. In addition, in all the places where anyone living in this city would inevitably leave traces, almost all of them have been covered by the other party. Where it can't be covered, they will find ways to confuse the trails. I found quite a lot of information, but most of it can't be verified and naturally can't be used for tracking." They have even paid attention to those things? Hearing Adify 00's response, Prince Andrei couldn't help but rub his temples, feeling a slight headache. That's strange. Leon clearly comes from a very backward kingdom, a country without even identity cards, so someone from there shouldn't have such a sense of secrecy. The Scorpio branch people were exposed precisely because of their travel records. But this Leon is different. He seems very familiar with these matters, knowing that seemingly inconspicuous information can expose whereabouts once consolidated. So he hides exceptionally well, making it very difficult to deal with. The Kralik Kingdom may not be large, but it's a country after all. If they keep hiding, wanting to get them out might really require drastic measures. So, are you willing to hand the whole kingdom over to me this time? Seeing Andrei's expression, Adify 00 took a sip of coffee and then said with a bright smile, "As long as you temporarily lift the restrictions and allow me to not just mobilize computation but give me the highest authority to control the entire kingdom, in just 15 hours at most, I can help you dig out those 2 little mice and deliver them to you skin and bone." Prince Andrei glanced at her upon hearing this, saying nothing, but the corner of his thin lips slightly twitched into a mocking expression, clearly expressing his intentions. Don't worry. Even though you're not kind to Ant, Ant still acknowledges you as nephew. Adify00 wasn't angry and said leisurely while sipping cold coffee. According to the agreement between you and the Slaughter King Association, as long as they help you, you won't have any children in this lifetime, and the royal line of Kralik ends with you. But this doesn't mean there isn't a loophole. With the human transmutation technology developed by you and Adify01, we can completely mass-produce empty shell persons without souls, and then extract the brains of the most qualified group as the main core with slightly lesser ones made into subbodies. With my computational power and the national strength of the Kralik Kingdom, within 30 years we could produce 20,000 Adify subbodies, and by that time you can completely shut up. After glaring coldly at Adify00, Prince Andre said with a venomous expression, "Do you think I'm stupid? If I really gave you the highest authority, among those 20,000 Adify subbodies, one of them would definitely use my brain. Rest assured you're not worthy." Adify00 replied with a smile. "I checked your brain when you were very young. Your brain is also highly developed, even no less than Philea's, but the developed areas are not what I need. Judging from the active sectors, you might have a good talent in art, but as for making you into a smart brain core, Ant can only very regretfully tell you, the gap between me and Philea is estimated to be 700 of you. Using you to make an Adify subbody would be a pure waste of materials." "Haha. Then I really have to thank you. If you hadn't disdained my brain, perhaps back then."
Dun dun dung dung.
Just as Prince Andre squinted his eyes and began to retort with sarcasm, a spirited instrumental sound quietly started playing, followed by a familiar broadcast voice through the speakers in Research Area 1. "Citizens of the Kralik Kingdom, it's now time for the morning news broadcast." The broadcaster's sweet voice briefly overshadowed Prince Andre's words. First, yesterday's news. The scholar Belgraham, who improved the wireless remote exchange phone, was attacked by a fugitive criminal. "Ah, who are you? You can't come in here. You all, get out." Upon hearing the commotion in the speaker, the two in the secret chamber were momentarily startled, while Prince Andre seemed to realize something, and abruptly stood up, a look of disbelief appearing on his face. "Sorry, we really have no choice but to take this opportunity to speak to everyone. Broadcaster miss, please go over here and rest for a while." A voice quite familiar to Prince Andre came through the speaker, and the original broadcaster made a muffled noise before being led away from the microphone. "Citizens of the Kralik Kingdom, I regret to inform you that the entire kingdom is now at a critical moment of life and death." Amid the bewildered expressions of the aunt and nephew in the chamber, the voice from the speaker said solemnly, "The third Prince Andre not only conspired to harm King Fine, but has also slain all the royal family members. He is now preparing to use newly developed technology in Research Area 1 to forcibly control the minds of all citizens, and then deploy troops quickly." Upon hearing this, having guessed what Leon wanted to do, Prince Andre's veins on his forehead popped out, and he turned back yelling, "Immediately seal off. No. Bomb Residential Area 19. Cut off all sound transmission signals. Make him shut up quickly." "I've been doing that," Adify00 said angrily, biting her lip. But right when the broadcast began, apart from the underground sound transmission tubes, all 52 external signal stations in Area 1 were cut off at the exact same second, so my command can't go out. Upon hearing this, Prince Andre's face darkened, and he said incredulously, "All 52 were cut off? Not a single one left? Didn't you leave a hidden signal station? How to hide?" Adify00, with the signal station destroyed, seemed like her mind suddenly lost control over her body, angrily retorting, "The blocks in the kingdom are semi-closed. Plus, the core of Area 1 is underground, surrounded by high-rise buildings. If the signal station isn't placed high enough, it'd be blocked and couldn't even transmit as far as someone shouting. Tell me how to hide it." "Citizens of the Kralik Kingdom, I am the 6th Princess Philea, also the only survivor of the royal bloodshed. While the two in the chamber were arguing, a voice very familiar to them both sobbed uncontrollably, accusing, Andre has gone insane to satisfy his ambition. He murdered father, murdered mother, murdered everyone. Now he plans to use brain info pieces and identity cards to gradually control everyone. I now have no family left, and I plead with everyone, for the kingdom, also for ourselves, to stand up together and resist his brutal rule. Phylea? Hearing the familiar voice from the loudspeaker, Prince Andre couldn't help but frown slightly, while Adify00 raised her hand, pressing the back of her head where the information chip was implanted. It's fake. After closing her eyes to analyze for a while, Adify00 opened her eyes and said with absolute certainty, although it's slightly distorted from passing through the loudspeaker, this sound is produced by a mimic pipe, a synthetic voice broadcast by an AI, not Phylea's real voice. It seems that the previously missing Adify 128 is indeed in their hands. Whether these words are spoken by Phylea is no longer important now. Snapping out of his surprise, Andre shook his head and said with a frown, the biggest problem now is how many people have heard these things he said, and how many will be convinced by him. The situation doesn't look promising. After a brief calculation, Adify00 said helplessly, the morning news broadcast is spread through the entire kingdom's public loudspeakers. As long as people are awake, they will hear it. Excluding shift workers and other night duty personnel, about 75% of the populace is listening. 75%? Prince Andre pondered for a moment upon hearing this, then said, send someone to fix the signal station immediately. No need to fix them all, just repair 2 or 3 to ensure the signal can get out, and then don't cut the broadcast signal. Let them keep talking. Why? Adify00 was slightly taken aback, then asked puzzled. The signal station is already being repaired, but why not cut the signal? What they're saying now is very detrimental to you. If you let them continue, if you forcibly cut the signal and suddenly make them shut up, that would really be a death sentence for me. Prince Andre said coldly, most people are still skeptical about what they're saying now, but if you really cut the signal and forcibly make them shut up, then I really can't explain it clearly. We must let them keep talking and then plug me into... Bang! At this moment, a gunshot suddenly burst from the loudspeaker, and the Phylea, who was condemning Prince Andre's madness, suddenly let out a miserable scream, as if colliding with something. A loud noise and Leon's anxious inquiries followed over the microphone. Princess Phylea, are you okay? Then, a sharp, tense voice from the broadcast room rang out from afar, transmitted through the loudspeaker. Shoot quickly, let them shut up. Don't let them speak anymore. Oh no. Hearing the chaotic footsteps from the loudspeaker and the painful groan of the shot Phylea, Prince Andre couldn't help but close his eyes, sigh deeply, knowing that the other side was probably trying to think ahead of him again. And if he's guessing correctly, the shooting of Phylea might just be the beginning, and there are probably more deadlier plots waiting for him. I'm fine. Sure enough, after groaning painfully for a few moments, the Phylea, who was suspected of being shot, surprisingly returned to the microphone, speaking with a mixed but still discernible tone. Let me finish. No, you must hurry and treat your wound. Leon in the loudspeaker urgently advised. Damn it, your lung is pierced. There's so much blood coming out. Stop talking. I must take you away immediately. No, let me continue speaking. Amidst the increasingly dense gunfire, Phylea, whose lung was pierced, coughed up blood, then seemingly in a fit of lucidity, said loudly with a slight choked voice, for this opportunity so many of us died. I can't let them sacrifice in vain. Citizens of Kralik Kingdom, be cautious. Make sure not to let our country be ruined by Andre's ambition. You, protect yourselves. Never let him control. He will. Bang! The other rebels trying to block the guards seemed to be unable to hold them back anymore, and the sound of the door being kicked open came from the loudspeaker, as the sharp voice that previously ordered to shoot yelled again. Shoot. Quickly shoot. Cut the line. Go report to His Highness. Damn it. Hurry up and shoot. Stop. Leon in the loudspeaker roared fiercely. She is Princess Phylea, the sixth princess. You're... Shut up. There's no such sixth princess. Shoot. I order you to shoot and kill her. Bastards. Have you been brainwashed? Citizens of the Kralik Kingdom, please protect yourselves. Stay away from Andre. He will. Shoot. Shoot. Damn it. Give me the gun.
Bang, 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 bang.
Screech. This time it's really troublesome, watching the completely silent loudspeaker and having listened through the whole morning drama. Prince Andre couldn't help but sigh, saying to Adify 00, who was stunned, "Hurry up and fix the signal station, and then quickly have someone announce for me what comes next." Screech. Suddenly, noises reappeared from the quiet loudspeaker, as the voice that previously ordered the soldiers to shoot, with a disgusting tone, haughtily announced, "Citizens of the Kralik Kingdom, I'm His Highness Andre's personal guard. Just now a bunch of rebels attempting to overthrow the kingdom abducted Princess Phylea and forced her to lie and slander the royal family in public. All previously broadcast content was complete nonsense. The gang of rebels has now been driven away, but to prevent their return to continue spreading rumors, the first broadcast zone is now under military control, and all broadcasts are suspended indefinitely. Finally, tonight the celebration street in the residential zone 3 to 15 will be temporarily consolidated, and all citizens are required to attend. At that time, His Highness Andre will attend the celebration to explain everything that happened today. All right, end the broadcast. Go cut the signal. Screech. All right, well done. After shooting the microphone, Leon tossed the mimicking wounded Adify 128 back into the mirrored world, then grabbed the eager-looking black goat and said to the terrified broadcasting lady next to him, "I'm sorry, but next." "No, don't shoot." Upon hearing Leon's words, the female broadcaster, who had just witnessed the voice performance, weakened at the knees in horror, saying with panic, I promise I won't say anything. I beg you. Relax. I am not going to silence you." Leon shook his head helplessly and explained, "I just want to let you know." "Never mind, Frankie. You take over." "All right." In the broadcaster lady's fearful scream, a bundle of transparent fishing lines was spat out by the black goat, which then hooked her and dozens of other employees, flying them out of the building. After checking the situation in the building by feeling the black goat's head and confirming no one was left behind, Leon grabbed onto the fishing line and followed out of the building, throwing a bomb backhanded at the window behind him upon landing. Boom! All done. Mr. Leon really managed to do it. Ear pressed against the roadside loudspeaker, Alger listened to the entire morning mini-theater, involuntarily drawing a cold breath into his heart. When he first heard Mr. Leon's plan, he felt it was somewhat unreliable, thinking it impossible for a mere few minutes of loudspeaker broadcast to undermine Andre's rule. But now, he opened the eye affixed to the top of a tall building 50 meters away, glanced at the astonished crowd on the street, then opened another eye at the outskirts of District 1, looking at the fiercely arguing scholars, and couldn't help but be secretly shocked. The effect seems extraordinarily good. Although the broadcast alone cannot directly topple Andre, it has greatly shaken his authority. The hearts within the once solid Kralik kingdom are now unstable. Each day this situation persists poses a huge threat to Prince Andre's rule. For a long time to come, he will likely be busy stabilizing the situation, having little energy to deal with Mr. Leon and me. Since Mr. Leon has done so exceptionally well, I must work harder too, delaying as much as possible. Alger looked at the soldiers desperately repairing the signal station in the distance, his eyes slightly closed. Then, threads even finer than a spider's web, almost imperceptible to the naked eye, drifted toward the signal station with the breeze. Beep! Beep! As the threads approached within 20 meters, the curious instruments held by the soldiers immediately flashed red and emitted intense warning sounds. That thing is here again. Quick! Try to block it somehow. How to block it? In the soldiers' anxious expressions, the signal station route, which had been half re-erected, suddenly emitted harsh metallic screeches. The thick metal pole was silently yanked down, crashing toward an empty spot. Additionally, the instruments in their hands and the repair tools they brought were forcibly taken by a massive force, thrown down from high above, or even torn apart on the spot. Yet they didn't even know why. This batch of materials is ruined too. We can't repair the signal station. Then think of another method. What other method? Report up first, see what they say. Destroyed by a mysterious force, leaving no trace. This should be Wire Guy Alger's ability. Learning of the strange occurrences at the signal station, seemingly someone constantly preventing repairs, Andre couldn't help but furrow his brow, pondering Leon's purpose. The direct goal, naturally, is to block District 1's scientific area, preventing me from using Adify 00 to control the kingdom. However, the opponent should know this is just a few days' hassle. District 1 chose signal stations for message transmission because they're the most effective and stable. Even if they're unrepaired with Kralik Kingdom's technological accumulation, it would only take a bit of time to switch to slightly less effective yet safer methods. But the opponent isn't known for doing pointless work. With Scorpio Bureau's director captured, other cleaners killed, and only 2 left, yet arranging Wire Guy Alger to risk staying nearby, continuously sabotaging the signal station, it's unlikely just to delay a few days. Surely, there's another calculation. So, if it were me, what would I most want to do now? Rescue the captured 2? Attack District 1's scientific area? Or escape Kralik Kingdom amidst the chaos? Stop pondering. Seeing Andre's frown deepen, Adify 00 beside him spoke. Better ponder the evening affair instead. He had someone pose as yours, announcing you would attend tonight's celebration, publicly explaining today's events. How are you prepared? Deploy troops to surround the celebration neighborhoods. I'm still thinking. After hearing Adify Ott's question, Andre's cheek twitched. Then he said irritably, the broadcast building was bombed directly by him, and the underground sound pipes were cut to pieces, needing at least 2 or 3 weeks for repairs. Now, except for some small regional broadcasts, there's no other immediate nationwide communication channel. So in everyone's eyes, the officer ordering the shooting is mine, and what he says represents me. Anyone daring to attend the celebration now would either be my supporter or someone skeptical of the broadcast. These people are potential allies. If I don't go, I lose the chance to explain to them, and without their support, the kingdom's unrest can't be suppressed quickly. But if I go, those absent will see it as admitting that officer is mine, thus admitting Philea's words, basically losing the chance for recovery entirely, so whether I follow or not, it won't be good. How about this then? Upon hearing this, Adify 00 proposed. Your father's shell is still here. When tonight's celebration starts, you can take him and have him explain for you. Worth a try, but likely won't be too effective. Prince Andre frowned at the suggestion. According to the broadcast, my ambition is using District 1's newly developed technology to control all citizens' minds. So even if I bring my father's shell over, it can't completely dispel others' doubts. Indeed, the morning broadcast was too effective. Now even many District 1 scholars are questioning if such research exists. A bunch of idiots. After cursing, Adify 00 said with a headache, you already are a prince. If you sincerely want people to do something, most times you can simply order it. Why complicate things by controlling their minds? Yet such nonsense convinces people? Prince Andre sighed again upon hearing this. It's because this reason is absurd that it makes it troublesome for me. Although most people in Kralik Kingdom can read and possess some knowledge, most are scientifically inclined. Their understanding of politics and tactics remains stuck in the fictional dramatizations, barely grasping the basics. For 90% of the country's ordinary citizens, seemingly rational reasons have average credibility, whereas sensational news holds higher credibility. And given its relevance to personal safety, even with doubts, they'll attempt to explore it somewhat. What's crucial is, although Philea is fake, what Philea says is not entirely false, as I did indeed kill all the royal family members. If the opponent finds evidence that proves royal family members were indeed killed by me, based on the one truth, all true, one false, all false principle, most people would believe I truly intend to control all citizens' minds then. Oh no! Pondering this far, the fog lingering in his mind finally cleared. Upon realizing everything, Prince Andrei jumped up in shock, exclaiming, "The palace! His target is the palace." Shifting time a little earlier, back to 1 hour after the broadcast building had just been bombed. "How are you guys doing? Can you still hold on?" Leon glanced at the robber sister being carried on her brother's back, her little face deathly pale and beaded with sweat. He couldn't help but pause and frowned, saying, "Why don't we stop here? You can give me a general direction, and I'll find my way ahead by myself." "No, there's no need." Upon hearing Leon's words, the robber brother, whose complexion wasn't great either, shook his head, pale-faced but breathing excitedly. "We want to go. We want to see for ourselves what happens to those people." After speaking, the crystal dust within the robber brother's body kept struggling forward painfully, making the robber sister, who couldn't walk due to the pain, nod her little head. "Weak but full of pleasure," she said. I feel the same, as long as I can take a look, even if I die, it's worth it." "Forget it, suit yourselves," Leon sighed after glancing at their excited expressions, knowing what they'd been through and didn't dwell on persuading them further. Instead, he took out the plague-infected blood band, preparing, and then asked, "How is it now? About how far is it to the palace?" "Very close now." The robber sister raised her arm covered in blood spots upon hearing, then answered tremblingly, "I am now in extreme pain, so there must be a particularly large hover crystal right ahead, just a bit further. Ugh." With a mute grunt, several small blood mists abruptly erupted from beneath the raised arm of the robber sister. These sparkling blood mists, once detached from her body, seemed to possess life, surging forward diagonally and swiftly crashing against the stone bricks on the ground, producing a dense patter like raindrops. At the same time, seemingly receiving some strange signal, several foggy blood mists burst from the robber brother's body the same way, his legs buckling as he fell with a thud. "All right, let's stop here." After catching the falling robber siblings, regarding the two who were in too much pain to move, Leon advised helplessly, "We're already very close to the palace. I know how to proceed from here. If we go further, the hover crystal dust within you may start bursting out bit by bit. It's best if I assist you." "No, not moving." The robber sister was in too much pain to speak, while the physically stronger robber brother weakly shook his head, muttering through a mouthful of blood. "We wouldn't have lasted long anyway. Rather than dying with hover crystal dust inside, it would be better to live another 60 years. Staying alive beats dying." Casually interjecting, Leon surveyed the surrounding environment, then led the robber siblings to a roadside building, tossed them inside a window, and entered as well. Approximately 20 seconds later, from another window 300 meters ahead, two individuals covered in blood suddenly fell out, appearing as if they'd explosives strapped to them. Countless blood mists burst around them, staining the ground red, falling silently, unmoving. While the blood sprays, surveying the gruesome scene of excessive bloodshed, Leon, who followed out from the mirror world, couldn't help but hiss, having to wrap the plague-infected blood band around them, then found a relatively clean spot to sit down. Immediately afterward, Leon's soul emerged drenched in dog blood, rushing forward a few steps, grabbed the bewildered-looking robber siblings watching their bodies, and loudly reminded, "Hold on to me a bit. Don't accidentally get taken by the realm of the dead." After instructing, Leon stood by the roadside, holding the souls of the robber siblings, watching as the plague-infected blood band rapidly repaired their damaged bodies, continued instructing. Soon I'll be busy, can't watch over you. After you are revived, I'll toss you back into the mirror. Inside the mirror, there's a little husky with a tuft of golden hair on its head. Follow behind it on the way back to the base, wait there for me, and remember to step outside for air every 3 to 50 seconds returning. Careful not to suffocate inside. Did you hear me? If you heard, say something. We. Looking up at the bloodied Leon, the robber sister's soul first reacted, joyfully asking, "Are we? You died, but your souls haven't entered the realm of the dead. So you're not considered dead. You can still return to life. Can't let you lead me all this way for nothing. Consider this your payment." Glancing at her body that was almost fully repaired, Leon slightly reclined, then relying on the power of the three-headed canine deity, tried dispersing the spreading death within her soul, followed by forcibly pressing the robber sister's soul back into her body. "Hurry! Lie down!" After shoving the robber sister's soul back into the body, Leon breathed heavily a couple of times, then addressed the bewildered robber brother. "Did you remember what I said earlier? When things are settled here, if I'm still alive, I'll find you, take you from the Kralik Kingdom. If I'm unlucky and get killed, there's 2 months' worth of provisions left for you at the base. You and your sister should hide well, if nothing unexpected occurs in about 2 months. Ah! Before Leon could finish, the robber brother suddenly shivered, then exclaimed in panic, Am I dead? You indeed died stupidly. Looking at the robber brother, whose reaction speed was less slow and more nearly new second-hand brain unused, Leon sighed, gave up further reminders, and switched to giving a nudge behind his knees, pushing his soul back into his body. If confused, ask your sister. Her mind works better than yours. ZZZ. Just as Leon pressed the bewildered robber brother's soul back, worried about its tightness with the body, he pressed firmly twice, when a long-overdue sharp buzz suddenly resounded. Successfully resolved a special condition that could not be cured under existing medical standards, successfully activating the special silver badge, Head Off Doctor. Head Off Doctor. In this world, there are no incurable diseases, regardless of how challenging the ailment. Simply remove the head, treat the body first, then put the head back and it's considered cured. Equipped effect. After removing the patient's head, effects on their body's treatment are substantially enhanced. Advancement path. None. Hidden trait. No equip required. Patients treated by you may experience involuntary, rhythmic muscle contractions and relaxations upon hearing your name, accompanied by skin blood vessel constriction leading to a cold sweat phenomenon where sweat doesn't normally heat up. What is this bizarre badge? Upon seeing the effect that increases the healing effect on the body after removing the patient's head from the Head Off Doctor, Leon's mouth couldn't help but twitch slightly, finding it hard to maintain his composure for a moment. The robber brother, who had died once and was resurrected, had already sat up with a bewildered expression, staring blankly amidst the splattered blood plasma on the ground, while the robber's sister, who had awakened earlier, was already shaking as she stood up, incredulously inspecting her own body. It's gone. Everything's gone. Seeing her arms, now as fair and clean as those of other children her age, without the dense blood spots that sent chills through the heart, and feeling a body no longer in constant, strange pain, the robber sister couldn't help but cry tears of joy and turned to hug the still-dazed robber brother, exclaiming, "Brother, we're saved. We don't have to die." Ah! The robber brother, still processing the experience of dying and coming back to life, scratched the back of his head and said blankly, "But I feel like I died, but also like I didn't. Better leave the thinking to your sister. This kind of brain work isn't your thing." Unable to resist a quip, Leon waved his hand before the robber sister could express gratitude, quickly reiterating the earlier instructions, and then patted the glass behind him. "All right, get inside. Remember to hide well. Don't let my efforts go to waste." Thank you. We'll hide well." Without saying anything about repaying the favor, the robber sister simply gave Leon a deep look, memorizing his appearance, then knelt and bowed twice forcefully, before dragging the still bewildered robber brother into the mirror leading to the mirror world as a young pup barked. What an extraordinary child. After the robber siblings left, the black goat in Leon's hand opened its mouth, and Frankie's soul emerged, carrying a fishing rod, saying admiringly, "Even experienced cleaners like us require moments to react after the shock of having our souls separated from our bodies upon sudden death." But she managed to react quickly, indicating really great talent on a soul level. Not just the soul. Following Frankie, female cleaner Mona emerged, her expression complex as she remarked, "The child's physical talent may be poor, but her mental resilience is remarkably strong. Apart from her past of abnormal suffering, she possesses an obsessive personality and intense emotions, making her a born candidate for a cleaner." Indeed, after the female cleaner emerged, Reuben, his soul-bearing petal-like wings, also came out, clicking his tongue in amazement as he remarked, "In my soul state, I am much more perceptive. Earlier, I faintly sensed that in her previous state, she seemed just a step away from giving birth to an abnormal object. A slight trigger might have pushed her over. With her displayed talent, as long as she doesn't encounter missions certain to result in death too early, she might become a level 1 cleaner before turning 20, or even an elite like Executioner Emma. You Virgin Branch folks have found a promising talent. We'll see." Uncertainly, Leon shook his head and glanced into the mirror at the diminishing figure of the robber siblings, sighing slightly. "Though the benefits and salaries of us cleaners are decent, the death rate is unfortunately high, making it not the best job. The two have already had enough misfortune in the first half of their lives. Instead of risking it as cleaners, they might be better off returning to the kingdom to live as ordinary people, taking care of each other like a regular brother and sister might." Indeed, after hearing Leon's words, the 3 veteran cleaners exchanged glances, seeing a sense of helplessness on their own souls' faces. Although becoming a cleaner grants power far beyond ordinary people's and even grants temporary command over military forces, it also means being bound by the Bureau's regulations, executing countless high-risk tasks. And the most fatal part is, before officially executing a task, it's impossible to know which one will be lethal. Coupled with the ever-changing abilities of abnormal objects, even the strongest cleaners can encounter uncontrollable dangers. To say nothing of if Leon hadn't risked going to the realm of the dead to forcibly retrieve the 3 of us. None of us would have survived, all would have been counted in the Scorpio branch's death rate for the year. Moreover, our department head was ambushed. Although his soul didn't reach the realm of the dead, his body was destroyed just like us, which also counts in the death rate. Scorpio branch has had terrible luck this year. All right, predecessors, let's end the chit-chat here. While the veteran cleaners wore rueful expressions, Leon glanced at Kralik Palace in the distance, and then turned back with a serious expression. "Whether we can deal with Prince Andre hinges on this. Understand, predecessors, what will happen next could be very painful. Even the potential for soul-shattering exists, if you can't withstand that. If we can't stand it, consider it returning the favor for saving our lives." Before Leon could finish, the most passionate female cleaner, Mona, interjected, "Had you not pulled us back, we'd have been devoured by that Death Eater already. Now there's at least a chance of survival. The worst outcome is simply death. I've been prepared for that since becoming a cleaner." "Us as well." After the female cleaner finished speaking, Frankie and Reuben exchanged a glance, their expressions peculiar. "Actually, Director Edward sort of hinted to us about you, suggesting you're dangerous and advising caution around you. At the time, I joked that no matter how crazy you are, as a cleaner you wouldn't eat us, would you? Turns out it was a self-fulfilling prophecy." "All right, enough chatter." Frankie, being patted on the back by Reuben, took a deep breath and stood before Leon. "Eat up. Our souls are yours. Thank you, predecessors, for your trust." After looking at the expressions of the 3 veteran cleaners, confirming their readiness, Leon clenched his fist slightly and then kicked away the sneaky black goat, opening his mouth toward the souls of the 3 cleaners. Hiss! Accompanied by a clear inhaling sound, the souls of the 3 cleaners slightly shuddered, then lost their human forms, turning into faintly glowing mist, flowing toward Leon and forming a smoke pillar outside his sensory organs, crazily rushing into the orifices of his 7 orifices. As the Death Watcher canine, The three-headed canine deity's salary for guarding the realm of the Dead's Gate is the ability to freely select souls entering the realm and devour them as sustenance. By killing the three-headed canine deity and inheriting its power, Leon was commencing his first feast.